So it will be the toughest team the top-ranked Michigan has played so far this season. In the past 2 years, Coach Cal Stahl has moved the Golden Gophers to the top of the Big Ten's Little Eight. Those are the 8 teams that don't play in the Ohio State-Michigan game. Still, only the wildest Minnesota partisan would pick them to win the game. If they're going to have a chance to challenge the Wolverines, it'll ride on the arm and legs of Tony Dungy, senior quarterback from nearby Jackson, Michigan. Dungy is probably the most established quarterback in the Big Ten this year. He has as much actual game experience as any quarterback in the country. He was the starter and played much of the time as a freshman in 1973. And in 1974, he held the job all year, but his results were miserable. So bad that Coach Cal Stahl declared the job open before the 1975 season in the hopes another quarterback would take command. But Dungy responded to that challenge. He improved his passing dramatically, and last year became the Big Ten leader in total offense. He's always been a very good runner. He's become a good passer with the help of 2 wide receivers. One of them an all-Big Ten player named Kullis, Ron Kullis. Coach Cal Stahl has coached a lot of good receivers in his career, among them former Baltimore Colt great Jimmy Orr. But because of his ability to catch passes on the sideline and make acrobatic passes, he says Kullis is the best. For all of the Big Ten's Little Eight teams, depth is a problem. It's especially a problem for Minnesota today because of an unbelievable siege of injuries in the past couple of weeks. The list of those who cannot play or who are going to play but will play injured numbers 16 altogether, and many of them names that you're going to see on the screen right now. Frontline players, starters, or reserves who play a lot. The problem is especially critical on defense. The 2 key players there, George Washington, a nose guard, and George Adzik, a strong safety, are among the injured players. And now behind me, the Michigan band playing one of the great fight songs in all of college football, Hail to the Victors. We're going to be back for the start of this football game. Bill Fleming will be here to talk about Michigan in just a moment.
This 1976 Michigan football team certainly deserves to be ranked with some of the top teams of all time, at least in the minds of Michigan people. Just consider statistically, they are #1 in both polls. They lead the nation in scoring with a whopping 43.9 points per game. They also lead in rushing. And get this, every time they rush the ball, they get 6.6 yards. And yet, there is a feeling among many that Michigan really has not been tested. They want to know just how tough they are. They do know this. They have a very potent offense. They have a young man at quarterback by the name of Rick Leach. He wears number 7. He's just a sophomore. Last year, in his baptism of fire as a freshman, he learned his lessons well. Watch how cleverly he works the veer option. He even fooled our cameraman on that one. He's got good speed. When he gets out into the open, he can run well. But he has that uncanny ability of being able to release the ball to his trailing halfback at just the right time. And if he doesn't release it, then he keeps some ducks in the hole. He's a devastating runner and, of course, causes the defenses lots of problems. Now, a year ago, Rick Leach was not what you could call a great passer. He only completed about 30% of his passes. But this year, he's clipping along at something like 52% of his passes. And this is Michigan's leading receiver, Jimmy Smith, a wingback who every time he catches the football averages 28.7 yards per catch. Now, Michigan has great speed in the backfield. They have a young man back there by the name of Harlan H. Baum Huckleby. He's just a sophomore and has that kind of speed that Coach Bo Schembechler likes to see in a backfield. He can go all the way at any given instant. Once he sees that opening, he is gone. Also in the backfield is a young man by the name of Rob Lytle, who this season could very well surpass the all-time rushing record. And, of course, if Huckleby keeps up like he's been going as a sophomore, he could even surpass what Rob Lytle may do this year. Lytle himself is not only a great runner and who can play tailback or fullback, but he's also a devastating blocker. He's also a very interesting young man, as you'll find out in just a moment. But watch his moves. When Lytle gets through, he has really got some speed. He can cut. He can hit hard. He can do anything that is asked of him at any time, any place. Jim Lampley talked with Rob Lytle just a little bit earlier, and here's their conversation.
There has to be a sort of inherent frustration having been here for the past few years at Michigan. The record is so good, win after win, yet no Rose Bowl. So many times you've been ranked in the top 2 or 3 and yet no national championship. As you come down to these last few games, do you think about the disappointments of the past?
Well, I'll tell you, it's been 4 frustrating years for me, and this is my last chance. And I think all the players realize, you know, who played last year realized what it was to, you know, I mean, they worked hard all year, and then to come down to the last game, you know, what happened last year. So everybody is, you know, fired up for every game this year, and, you know, we just, I don't know what would happen if we'd lost a game this year.
For that reason, I guess it would mean more to players here to be ranked #1 week after week than it might somewhere else.
Oh, I definitely believe it does, because I'll tell you, you know, some of the weaker teams maybe we played in the years past we wouldn't be as up for. But this year, since we've been, I think, ranked, and we know we have this national championship within our grasp, everybody seems to be really fired up for each game. It doesn't matter who we're playing.
Is this the best team you've played on here?
I wouldn't say it is the best team. It's probably the most diversified team I played on. We can pass, we can run, and our option plays are wide open. So, you know, there's no way a defense can key on just one person.
What about the record? How will you feel about becoming the all-time leading ground gainer at a school that's produced so many great football names?
Well, I'll tell you, that's going to be a big thrill for me. You know, it's something that's always been in the back of my mind. Even when I was recruited, Bo said that I'd have a shot at that. He says he felt that, you know, I'd have the capabilities of doing that. So, you know, it's been something in the back of my mind since, you know, ever since I've been here. But still, this team effort is the most important thing, and I feel that, you know, so once we win, you know, everything, then that'll be just icing on the cake.
Rob, you're not big enough to run over a lot of tacklers. What are your strengths as a runner?
My strength as a runner is probably my offensive line, because what they do is, you know, they're quick and they're big and they're powerful, and they open up these little creases for me, and that's all I need, because I feel that I'm quick enough to get into the crease and get away from those big defensive men, so I don't really maybe take the punishment that most bigger fullbacks would take.
What's in the future for Rob Lytle, professional football?
Well, if that comes about, then I'd like to give that a try. But if it doesn't, then I'd like to go back home and probably work with my dad.
And you'd like to go back home and say you won a national championship in Michigan?
I sure would, I'll tell you. that'd be just great. That's just icing on the cake, because that's something we've been striving for 4 years, and I hope we can do it my senior year.
You know, Michigan has had a tradition of great linebacking. Adolf Germany Schultz invented that position back in the Fielding H. Yost days. Since that time, of course, they've had Chuck Bernard and Roger Zetkoff and Dick Kempthorne and, of course, Mike Taylor, Don Dufek. They also have a fellow this year who falls into that tradition. His name is Calvin O'Neill. He wears number 96, and you're going to see him in evidence today, as you will also see a man by the name of Greg Morton, who wears number 77. He hits hard, but he also has an interesting pastime. He raises plants. Listen to this.
I was raised with my grandmother, and her and my grandfather would usually be out in the garden, you know, digging up peas and planting potatoes and whatnot. And my grandmother had a big flower garden where she would plant flowers. And I was living with my grandmother most of the time. And so I, you know, monkey see, monkey do, so I'd be out there with her. And I just got used to planting flowers and growing flowers, and as I got older, you know, they never left me. This is my pride and joy right here. This is Phyllis the philodendron right here, and she just brought us some new lilies. And I got cactus plants, which you can see here, and jade plants, and this is a tiger plant here.
This doesn't relate to football or history or pre-law?
Well, not really. You know, it helps me relax a lot. And, you know, a lot of times I can come home or whatnot, and, you know, take care of the plants and water the plants, and it takes a lot of tension off you, especially, you know, for me, doing Thursday is a mental day, you know, for, you know, us on the football team. It's just like we're getting all our assignments down and whatnot, and it just gives you time to think out what you got to do for the upcoming Saturday. And for me, when I'm around my plants and whatnot, you know, I think about that person I'm playing over and what assignments I have to carry out and what I have to do, you know, to have a good game on Saturday.
But it doesn't fit the stereotype of a big defensive tackle.
Well, I agree with you there. A lot of people say, yeah, I don't know. it doesn't fit that stereotype of a big defensive tackle. But, you know, it's a side of me that, you know, too many people don't see out there on the field. You know, they see number 77, you know, tackling people and chasing after people. And they come in and they say, good gracious, you know, look at all these plants around. Whose are they? And I say, hey, they're my plants. And they look at me and say, these are your plants? You know, it just seems so different.
A very unusual man is Greg Morton of Michigan. We're getting close to kickoff time, and we'll be back in just a moment. So here it is, the Michigan Stadium, the place where the Osterbonds and the Harmons and the Wisterts, the Zatkoffs, the Kramers have performed down through the years. And it's the scene today of Minnesota against Michigan, the Michigan Stadium in Ann Arbor. And this is Bill Fleming inviting you to join Keith Jackson, Bud Wilkinson, Jim Lampley, and me for ABC's exclusive telecast of the Golden Gophers of Minnesota against the Wolverines of Michigan.
Eight days to...
NCAA College Football. On this October 30th, 1976, the Michigan Wolverines and the Minnesota Golden Gophers play for the 67th time. From Ann Arbor Stadium in Ann Arbor, Michigan, the Michigan Wolverines and the Minnesota Golden Gophers in one of those traditionals in college football. And this ABC Sports Exclusive is brought to you by National Semiconductor Digital Watches, Calculators, and Video Games. By Eastern Airlines, the people of Eastern have the right time and the right place for you. Eastern, the wings of men. By the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company, Goodyear Tires and Goodyear Service for more good years in your car. And by Anheuser-Busch Incorporated, St. Louis, Missouri, brewers of Budweiser. When you say Budweiser, you've said it all. Today, Michigan Stadium will have more than 100,000 people sitting in it for an 8th consecutive Michigan home game. And next week's game with Illinois already sold out. So there will be 9 consecutive 100,000-plus crowds assured. And why not? They come to see exciting winning football in Michigan. The Wolverines undefeated and untested so far in 1976. And as you know, top-ranked in the country. Today, the Minnesota Golden Gophers will take their shot at them for the Little Brown Jug game. And this game marks homecoming for 1976 for the University of Michigan. And coming out of the tunnel and onto the field, here are the Golden Gophers of Minnesota with 5 wins and 2 losses. Their losses coming to Iowa last week and to the University of Washington Huskies in Seattle. The Golden Gophers coached by Cal Stoll, the definite threat to the Michigan winning string here this afternoon in Ann Arbor. And now the roar builds out of the massive arena as the Michigan Wolverines prepare to enter the field. And when the blues goes, you'll hear the mightiest roar you'll hear anywhere, because this is indeed a partisan football crowd. Bo Schembechler's undefeated Michigan Wolverines, having won all 7 of their games in 1976. The M-Club banner is up in the center of the field, and there are the results of the games played so far by Michigan in 1976, and as you can see, they have really not been tested by anyone save Wisconsin in that opening game. And here come the Wolverines. Again, everybody. I'm Keith Jackson. I'll be calling the play. Working with us today, the expert commentator, is a man who played in the trenches for Bernie Bierman at the University of Minnesota. And when this old Golden Gopher played, Michigan scored nary a point in 3 games. A little gold is gone from the locks, replaced by silver. Time and wisdom took care of that. But we welcome back Bud Wilkinson.
Thank you, Keith. This is a great traditional series. Teams have had their ups and downs. When I was in school at Minnesota, we had a hot streak going, and Michigan was a little bit low. That's changed around now, and Michigan has dominated the series. But Minnesota is ready to play today. In spite of injuries, Cal Stoll says his team has never been as emotionally ready. Anything can happen, even though Michigan clearly has got greater power than the Gophers going into the game.
Now, the Wolverines, as I indicated in the earlier comment, have not really been tested in 1976, and this is a worry to Bo Schembechler. He said publicly he hopes his team will get into a position where they'll really have to scratch.
Well, the combined record of Michigan's opponents is 15 wins, 34 losses, and 1 tie. So you're absolutely right. Statistics bear you out that they haven't been in the ring against too many good teams. And when you've had it too much your way, from a coaching standpoint, you do hope that you'll have to fire it out well in the second half, perhaps even come from behind, because you know down the road against Ohio State, in a bowl game, if you're Michigan, you're going to be tested, and you want to have the experience of that test, and hopefully Bo thinks this afternoon Minnesota can do it, and I hope they can too.
All right, let's join now a loyal old blue, Bill Fleming.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Minnesota team today is introducing its seniors. Defensive end, number 87 from Detroit, Ron Robel. Nose guard, number 53 from Minot, North Dakota, Mark Slater. Safety, number 20 from Eden Prairie, Minnesota, George Adzik. Kicking specialist, number 13 from Farmington, Michigan, Paul Rogan. Wide receiver, number 45 from Detroit, Mike Jones. Tackle, number 62 from Hastings, Minnesota, Terry Matula. Guard, number 67 from Green Bay, Wisconsin, Bryson Holloman. Guard, number 63 from Albert Lee, Minnesota, Greg Shaw. Wide receiver, number 46 from Columbia Heights, Minnesota, Ron Koulis. At quarterback, number 9 from Jackson, Michigan, Tony Dungy. At tailback, number 25 from Monessen, Pennsylvania, Bubby Holmes. At fullback, number 37 from Red Wing, Minnesota, Jim Perkins. And the head coach of the Golden Gophers, Cal Stoll. For the Wolverines of Michigan, the offensive team. Split end, number 85 from La Jolla, California, Kurt Stevenson. At offensive tackle, number 78 from Evanston, Illinois, Mike Kent. Right guard, number 69 from Oak Lawn, Illinois, Jerry Zara. At center, number 72 from Coatesville, Pennsylvania, Walt Downing. At left guard, number 60 from Oak Lawn, Illinois, Mark Donahue. At tackle, number 73 from East Grand Rapids, Michigan, Bill Dufek. At tight end, number 88 from Flint, Michigan, Gene Johnson. At quarterback, number 7 from Flint, Michigan, Rick Leach. At tailback, number 25 from Detroit, Harlan Huckleby. At wingback, number 37 from Blue Island, Illinois, Jim Smith. At fullback, number 33 from Woodbridge, Virginia, Russell Davis. And the co-captain, also fullback, number 41 from Fremont, Ohio, Rob Lytle. The head coach of the Wolverines, Bo Schembechler.
More than 100,000 people ready now for the kickoff between Michigan and Minnesota. Out in the center of the field, the captains of the respective teams, George Adzik, Tony Dungy for Minnesota, Rob Lytle and Calvin O'Neill for Michigan. Meeting with the officials, the referee is Gene Calhoun. Frank Stretcher is the umpire. Bob Degenhardt, the linesman. John Nealon, the line judge. Otto Pulls, the field judge. Bob Walker, the back judge. The referee, Gene Calhoun, will flip the coin and we'll see who gets to kick off and who receives. They had the pregame flip. And we are waiting now for the indication from the referee, Gene Calhoun, as he places the ball as to which team will be kicking off and which team will receive. They, unlike some of the places in the country, here at the University of Michigan, carried out their flip of the coin prior to the two teams coming onto the football field. The University of Michigan home crowds have just been a sensational story throughout this football season, because this is the 8th consecutive time they have had more than 100,000 people, and as we told you a little while ago, the game with Illinois is sold out for next week. Minnesota is going to receive the kickoff, incidentally, and we'll have a look at the Minnesota backfield as they will start the ball game. Tony Dungy, who's one of the fine passing quarterbacks in the country, number 9. Kent Kitzman, number 44, is the tailback. Running at fullback, it'll be John Matthews, number 35, and Ron Kulis, number 46, will be the wide receiver in the Golden Gopher starting backfield. Minnesota was bruised considerably in their ball game against Iowa. They got off to a substantial lead against the Hawkeyes last week, and then in the second half, Iowa started to come on, and Minnesota was hit by a wave of injuries, and they ultimately wound up losing the ball game 22-12. Now, the big guys working up front, the wide receiver is Jeff Anhorn, number 86 for Minnesota. Terry Matula will be at tackle, number 62. Gary Acromite at guard, 66. Kevin Natty at the center, number 58. Greg Schaaf, number 63, will be at guard. On the right side will be Jeff Morrow at tackle, 76. And Glenn Borkman, number 83, will be the tight end. So the Minnesota Golden Gophers assembling now, going out on the field to do the kicking for Michigan will be number 3, Bob Wood. He is a senior out of London, Ohio. He does most of the kicking for the Michigan Wolverines off the tee, the place kicker. Michigan, of course, wearing the home blue. It is an almost perfect day for a football game. There is no sun to fuss with. Bud Wilkinson, the temperature is comfortable enough for a football game in the middle 40s.
And we don't have any wind either, Keith, so as you said, it's absolutely perfect conditions to play.
Bob Wood is putting it down on the tee. And the deep men for the Minnesota Golden Gophers are John Matthews, 35, Bobby Weber, 28, and Kent Kitzman, number 44. In the numbers department for the kickoff returns, Weber is the better of the 3. He's averaging just under 19 yards per return. So we're ready to go with the 6-7 football game between Michigan and Minnesota. Wood's kick is very, very high. It goes to number 28, Bobby Weber. He's missed by a man at the 12-yard line, holds his balance out to about the 25-yard line. He was hit first inside the 20, but showing good agility, brings the football back a total of 22 yards. And that's where the Minnesota Golden Gophers will go to work. Defensively for Michigan, Dom Tedesco, Greg Morton, Bob Lang, John Hennessy, and John Anderson. The big guys up front. The linebackers are Calvin O'Neill. Now let's get this first play underway. We'll set the rest of the defense for you. Jerry Zuber is that rover man. Dunge is going to put it up on the first play, goes to the sidelines and throw it behind his intended receiver, Jeff Anhorn. Anhorn took 2 steps off the line of scrimmage, going to the tight side of the field, and Dunge missed him. Bogley and Calvin O'Neill are the linebackers. In the defensive secondary, you see Jerry Zuber now. He's the wolf man, but he'll be up there playing sometimes in what amounts to a linebacker position. Jim Bolden, Derek Howard, and Dwight Hicks. Kitzman comes out of the backfield for Minnesota now, and Steve Rowe comes in from the 24-yard line. It is 2nd down and 10 for the Gophers. Going to throw it again. Throws it. Gets the pass into the hands of Rowe. The tailback coming out of the backfield, and he is hit down short of the first down area at about the 32-yard line.
And I think those first 2 plays, Keith, indicate the whole style we'll see from Minnesota this afternoon. They've had receivers out, only 1 back remaining where he can run with the football. They don't believe that their running attack is nearly the threat as Dungy's passing. They've had 2 snaps, thrown it twice, and they'll throw it at least half the time this afternoon.
It is now 3rd down and about 3 yards for the first down. The football is resting just short of the 32-yard line. So it's a short 3 for the Gophers, and they're double wide. In fact, they have 3 wide receivers on the tight side or the left side of the field. Dungy stands up, goes to the sidelines, gets his first down. Pass caught by Jeff Anhorn, number 86, and the Gophers on 3 passes go for a first down.
Michigan is a very wide field conscious defensive team. Their wolfman Zuber always lines up to the wide field. That gives them about 1 more man to the wide field, and coaches, of course, believe in that very strongly because you get burned usually to the wide field. But the Minnesota attack this afternoon will concentrate going into the narrow side.
All right, this time the 3 wide receivers come to the open side of the field. The ball is at the 39-yard line. First down for Minnesota. Long count, number 31, cutting back to the tight side. Takes the pitch back from Tony Dungy, and Steve Rowe is hit as he gets up to about the 41-yard line. The tackle throw was made by John Anderson, who plays that defensive right end position. There's a look at the Minnesota head coach, Cal Stoll.
Dungy has rewritten all of the record books at Minnesota. More total yards than anyone in history. Last week, he passed Paul Giehl's total yardage marks for the Golden Gophers.
Ball at the 40-yard line. The ball is just barely over that mark. And make it second down and 9. And we get people moving before the snap of the ball. Penalty flags are down. Good long pass completion is thrown to 46 Ron Koulis, but that may very well be nullified by a motion penalty or illegal procedure against Minnesota. So they go for 15 yards on that pass play as he found his man, and as a matter of fact, Koulis was quite wide open.
Dungy reads the defense very, very well, and let's take a look at Koulis isolated here. Dungy will check signals at the line, calling an audible about 60 to 70% of the time. This is Koulis just floating down the field. He's so under control he can make the break beautifully, and this time he simply curled wide open, but unfortunately, Minnesota, if you're a Gopher fan, had an illegal procedure penalty which nullified the game.
And the ball is backed up now to near the 35-yard line, where it is second down and about 14 yards to go for the first down. Gophers going for a first down on 3 pass plays and then lose that 15-yarder because of the penalty. Dungy getting good protection, goes to the sidelines. Pass is completed, but it's very short yardage on the play as the fullback, John Matthews, came out of the backfield, number 35. The ball is marked. As a matter of fact, exactly 5 yards upfield. That was the amount of the penalty. And they're going to be looking at third down and 9 from right about the 40-yard line.
Dungy is throwing the ball particularly well, I think, Keith. If he can continue to have a hot afternoon, Minnesota can stay in the game. Michigan is a superb offensive team. Their defense is a little bit suspect, and Minnesota will have to have possession of the ball to stay in the game.
Double wide receivers to the open side of the field. The right side, as you look at them, or the bottom of the screen. Dungy goes short inside, passes, belted away, and there was double coverage that time on Ron Koulis coming from the left side or the tight side of the field. So he ignored the open area, and the 2 deep men going down into the open area went to the short man, and there was very little chance to complete it. So with 12:45 to go in the first quarter of play, the Minnesota Golden Gophers now will have to give up the football as Steve Tobin comes in to punt for them, and Jim Smith will be the deep man. Smith is back there along with Dwight Hicks, number 17. Smith is the man that Michigan likes to run it back. That's a good-looking punt by Tobin, and a fair catch is called by Jim Smith. He makes the catch at the 22-yard line, and there the Wolverines are going to have it. First down after a 38-yard punt by Tobin. Rick Leach starts at quarterback, number 7 for Michigan. He is a sophomore. Harlan Huckleby, another sophomore, number 25, will be at tailback. Here's the great one, Rob Lytle, number 41, the fullback. And Jimmy Smith will be the wingback, number 37. We'll set the offensive line for you in a moment. As Michigan comes up, the ball just outside the 22, their first offensive possession of the ball game. Very, very quick offensive football team. No score. Leach keeps the ball, sliding down, gives it to Huckleby. Huckleby spinning and is buried at the 24. Offensive line now for the Michigan Wolverines sets up like this for the first offensive possession of the day. Kurt Stevenson is the split end, number 85. Quite a story. I'll tell you about him later. 78 is Mike Kinn at tackle. Jerry Sarra, number 69 at guard. The man in the middle is Walt Downing, number 72. Mark Donahue at right guard, number 60. On the right side, it's Big Bill Dufek, number 73 at tackle. And Gene Johnson, number 88 at tight end. Ball is just short of the 24. Call it second down and 9 for the Wolverines. Leach keeps out of the tackle. There were 2 of the Golden Gophers that had their hands on it. He ducked under them, and he may have a first down as he ran for at least 8, maybe 9 yards. Michael Hunt, number 84, linebacker for the Gophers, made the stop. Just short. Defensively for Minnesota, Mark Merrill, Steve Mitbo, Mark Slater, Jim Roden, and Ron Robrell. The starters up front, Steve Stewart and Michael Hunt, the linebackers for Minnesota. And the secondary, Keith Brown, Bobby Weber, George Adzik, and Brian Snyder. Double tight end, Mark Schmirke, number 82, Gene Johnson, number 88. On third down and about a yard. Lytle, no, Leach keeps. Gives to Huckleby. They go wide on third and very short and get away with it. as Huckabee is able to get it up across the 35 for the first down.
You spoke of the speed of this Michigan offensive team, Keith, and I don't believe that I've ever seen any team that did have this much speed. As we look at the defensive play, Bitko coming across the line, and he's in fast pursuit here. He cuts it in, and as Huckabee cuts back, is making the tackle surrounded by a number of his teammates.
Kind of surprising they'd go wide on third down and very short yardage, but they got away with it. Here's Rick Leach from the 36-yard line. This time he gives it up to Rob Lytle, and Lytle whacks it for a good 3 yards as he gets to about the 39-yard line. Rob Lytle is 6'1", 195-pound senior from Fremont, Ohio, and he is closing out a brilliant career here at the University of Michigan. Coming into this football game, he has a career total of 2,715 yards in rushing. As you look at some of the numbers on the Michigan Wolverines, and Lytle needs only 185 yards to catch Gordon Bell and only 357 yards in the remaining games to become the all-time rushing leader for the University of Michigan.
And he's a 9.5 sprinter. Gives you some idea of the speed he has.
Second down and about 6 yards to go. And there's an example of the quickness of Lytle as the 195-pounder hits it all the way out to the 48-yard line, where it's a first down for the Wolverines. Brian Snyder, the free safety, made the tackle for Minnesota.
Minnesota's going to give them a different look on defense almost every down. They're playing some 5-3 and some what we call a split 6 linemen on the line of scrimmage with the guards out wide and the linebackers inside. They're going to be shooting a lot of people, but Michigan's offense is so consistent that they're going to find it very difficult to stop them.
So what you're saying that Cal Stoll and his people are just going to have to gamble?
That's what they feel they got to do, and I can agree with them.
First down from the 48-yard line. Lytle has the football, splits it over the left side, and takes it down inside the Minnesota 45-yard line before Michael Hunt gets him. Good blocking that time on the left side from Ken, Zara, and down the center.
Minnesota feels, Keith, that they've got to force Michigan to throw the ball. They've got to stop their running attack, and even though they're geared defensively to do nothing but that, Michigan thus far has sustained the ball extremely well with their running attack. It's a pure option offense. Off of every backfield pattern, they have the ability to option the ball, Leach being one of the great option quarterbacks in the game.
They've got to go to the 42-yard line for the first down, then eat 3 on second down.
Strike the ball, lose the Huckabee.
Leach keeps it. And he's got a first down for Michigan down near the 35-yard line of Minnesota. Again, it's Brian Snyder, number 21, coming up to make the tackle. So Rick Leach, keeping it successfully, goes for the first down.
Rob Roble just got confused there. Nobody blocked him, and Leach simply ran right past him.
The temperature in the middle 40s on sort of an overcast day, gray day in Ann Arbor. Call it the 36-yard line, first down, Wolverines. Their first offensive possession of the ball game. Coming around, it is Smith. Smith on the reverse is caught and dropped at the 32-yard line. Coming up, number 34 to make the tackle, Keith Brown, cornerback, with help from Mark Slater, number 53, the nose guard. Now, on the sidelines, here's Jim.
There may not be a quarterback in the country who's come as far as fast in the past several games as Rick Leach of Michigan. He started the season with his picture on the cover of a national magazine, despite the fact he was 0 for 18 passing against Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl. Last week he played what Bo Schembechler called a perfect game, and Schembechler says he's the best wet ball quarterback he's ever seen. Keith?
Second down and 7 yards to go. It's Lytle up the middle. And he's inside the 25-yard line. Michael Hunt making the tackle. Now they're going to mark him just short of the 25-yard line where he bounced. And that will be close to a first down, but not quite. They're about a foot and a half short.
I talked to Bo Schembechler yesterday. Keith, did they ever break the backfield, or do they always stay in the I formation? He said, if we can simply find out where they are, we think we can block them, so we never break up that I. We don't ever go to split backs or anything else. We're going to stay right solid in the I and try to find where the defensive people are.
Downing, number 72, snaps the ball on third down and a half a yard. Leach keeps it outside the Huckabee. He got away. And he's inside the 15-yard line. Keith Brown knocked him out.
George Adzik almost made the tackle there, but didn't have quite speed enough to get good position on Huckabee. Adzik got a very deep thigh bruise last week against the University of Iowa, slowed him up just a step.
Looking at the numbers going into this ball game for the Michigan backfield, you see remarkable balance. It's exactly the kind of a football team that Bo Schembechler likes to have.
That's how you get to be the #1 scoring team in the country, too.
Hucklebee's carried 3 times in the ball game. He's picked up 19 yards in his first offensive drive by Michigan. Stevenson is way wide to the left side, split out of the picture. Leach coming down the line, keeping the ball, now delivers it out for Huckleby. Huckleby, the youngster from Detroit, inside the 10-yard line. He's down at about the 8-yard line. Steve Stewart, the man who made the tackle for Minnesota. So from the 13-yard line, you move it down to about the 8. That's 5 yards. Make it the 7, make it 6 yards.
And the difference in speed is very, very evident. Michigan being perhaps the fastest team in college football, right across the line and also in the backfield. Their slowest man on their offensive line can run 40 yards in 4.8. That's some kind of swift.
A little bit of a rain falling now, just a very light sprinkle. They're going to have some as we work our way toward dark today. It is second down, and they need 4 yards for the first down. Leach going down the line, keeping it out of the rear offense, and penetrating and getting a hit on him and bringing him down is Mark Merrill, defensive left end, number 88. So he got him after about a yard pickup. It'll bring up a third down. They'll need a short 3 yards for the first down.
When you wonder about athletic ability, which is what it's all about, Leach last year started for the University of Michigan as a freshman. He's a superb all-around athlete, bonus prospect for baseball.
2 tight ends in the lineup now, with Smith coming out on third down and a short 3 for the first down from the 6-yard line of Minnesota. 50 back to Huckleby. Huckleby cutting for the corner. Touchdown! Takes it in from 6 yards.
Watch the touchdown again. You'll see beautiful execution. Lytle coming over the ball. The defense has got to respect him. A quick pitch. And Huckleby, with his 9.5 speed, simply outruns the Gopher defense into the end zone for the score.
Jerry Zuber holds it now. Bob Wood goes for the extra point, and he's got it. Harlan Huckleby. His 11th touchdown of the season. The extra point conversion is good, and so with 5:41 to go first quarter, Michigan takes the lead 7-0.
You might think.
Michigan in its first offensive possession takes it 78 yards in 13 plays using almost 7 minutes on the clock and take the lead 7-0 over the Minnesota Gophers with 5:41 to go in the first quarter. And now Michigan will kick off with John Matthews, Bobby Weber, and Kent Kitzman, the deep men. And the man who returned it previously was Weber. And he is the man in the middle, number 28, standing right there. Getting a little bit of a sprinkle of rain.
And that little bit of sprinkle of rain will not help the Minnesota chances. They've got to throw the ball to stay in the game. And when it gets wet, obviously, it's a little tougher to handle.
Bob Wood ready. Referee says go. Here he is. It's a sailor. It's a knuckleball. It's in the end zone. It'll be Minnesota. First down at the 20. The National Junior College Athletic Association has over 44,000 participants in the 19 sports offered in the men's division and 12,000 participants in 11 sports offered in the women's division. The NCAA and the National Junior College Athletic Association request your support for this important part of the junior college program. Bob Wood, the kicker, shaken up. He's down on the field. Time call for a moment. Let's spend it with Bill Fleming.
Okay, Keith, we've got a bit of a surprise here in one of our scores that's just come in. The nation's number 2 team, Pittsburgh, is being beaten right now by Syracuse. Pitt scored first at a 41-yard field goal by Carson Long, but then on an 80-yard pass from Bill Hurley to Dan McGee, Syracuse went ahead with 66 seconds to go in the first quarter. So, Syracuse out in front 7-3, Keith.
All right, Bill, thank you. It could be another one of those days, according to that, huh? And we've had a lot of those kind of days this year where the favorites sometimes get into some real scuffles. Tony Dungy, the quarterback now. He sends Bro up into a slot position, one remaining back behind him. First down at the 20-yard line. Gophers going to move it through the air if they can. It goes to the sidelines to Jeff Anhorn. Anhorn works his way up to the 27-yard line, and there he is knocked out of bounds by 86 Anderson and 96 O'Neill.
when he delays a long time at the line of scrimmage, he's looking at the defense, and the various formations that Minnesota's using hopefully will enable him to prejudge whether the defense used in the secondary is going to be a zone or a man-to-man. If it's man-to-man, he's going to hit those little curls and quick turnouts like the last pass.
We've got two wide receivers in now, 86 Anhorn and 45 Jones, with Borkland, the tight end, going out on 2nd down and 3 for Minnesota. Dungy to throw it, gets it off. Pass is caught by Bro, the tailback, coming out of the backfield. He's got a first down for the Gophers up around the 35-yard line.
That little running motion when they go to the wide field puts a little pressure on the defense, because somebody's got to come up to protect Dungy if he should decide to run with the ball, and it takes the corner man out of the play.
First down, Gophers, 35-yard line. They trail 7-0. Ball is handed off inside to Kent Kitzman, the tailback, number 44, the lone remaining back, and he is hit just a little short of the line of scrimmage that time, as Bob Lang, the middle guard for Michigan, penetrated. I tell you, this combination that Bo Schembechler has up front working for him, that's Tedesco, Morton, Lang, Hennessy, and Anderson. They're tough. They're not the biggest people in town, but they are certainly very, very quick defensively. It is in that short area where they are suspect, and you can burn them sometimes deep. On 2nd down, a little more than 10 yards to go from the 34-yard line for Minnesota. Dungy comes to the right side. Morton misses him. And Dungy runs it to about the 39-yard line before he runs into Calvin O'Neill and Jerry Vogeley.
And you can see the grass or the artificial turf getting just a little bit moist. Let's take a look at Calvin O'Neill, the great linebacker for the University of Michigan, 6'2", 230-pound senior, dropping back to protect against the pass. Dungy finds no one open. O'Neill slips just a little bit also. He comes up and is in perfect position as Dungy slips to make the tackle.
Calvin O'Neill, of course, quite a story back in the summer. He was caught in that Estes Park flood out in Colorado. Had to climb up a mountain, desert his van, and get away in order to save his life. Obviously, big tough fella, and he handled it all right. 3rd down and 6. Pass incomplete. The intended receiver, number 45, Mike Jones, falling down. He had a chance to catch it, but he lost his footing. So Minnesota will have to punt. Here's Jim.
Rick Leach apparently picked up a bruised thigh early in the Michigan touchdown drive and nursed it through the drive. Since that time, they brought him to the sidelines and wrapped the thigh, and he's going to go back in and play. Bob Wood, the kicker, got a wrap on the head, but he's okay. And Keith, we've got a first today. I'm being rained on the first time in 2.5 years.
Is that right?
Well, here's the punt by Tobin. High, pretty good kick. Smith comes up, calls fair catch. It's going to be Michigan's ball out at the 30-yard line. So now the question is, can Minnesota stop Michigan from scoring in their second offensive possession? In his 8th season at Michigan, quite a remarkable record. 73 wins, 9 losses, and 3 ties. Talking upstairs to the people, which way do we take it this time? Rick Leach is in there at quarterback. Rob Lytle, the fullback, and Harlan Huckleby, the tailback. And Leach gives to Huckleby. And he takes it from the 29-yard line of Michigan up to about the 34. That's 5 yards. Again, the running on the left side of the line made easier by the fact that Mike Kinn, a junior out of Evanston, Illinois, and Gary Sarra out of Oaklawn, Illinois, also a junior, make good, solid blocks over there.
This Michigan team has only punted 17 times this season, which gives you some idea of the consistency of the offensive attack. Speed, balance, precision.
Kurt Stevenson wide to the right, caught his first pass last week as a Wolverine. 2nd down and 5 yards to go, just short of the 35-yard line. Leach gives the ball to his fullback, Rob Lytle. Lytle can play fullback. He can play tailback. He can do just about anything you want, and he was fighting and struggling for first down yardage. That's also a mark of a great back when he knows where he has to go. Let's watch now. Number 97, Steve Stewart, make the defensive play for Minnesota.
He's a 6'3", 214-pound junior. He reads the play well, moves to the outside, avoiding the block, and he has good position on his tackle. He simply did not get his arms around Lytle, and you've got to get your arms around a good ball carrier of that caliber if you're going to stop him. Good hitting position, however.
It is a first down for Michigan, just short of the 40-yard line. Ball is given to Smith on the counter, coming around from the wingback fullback position, and they've got him at just about the line of scrimmage. Number 84 is there, Michael Hunt, and so is Steve Mitbo, number 78. Let's have a look at 78 doing his thing for Minnesota.
This is Mitbo fighting through his man. That's Dufek. Dufek thinking he would take the fake. He did not. Mitbo on the tackle, and Michigan was stopped for no gain, one of the few times this afternoon.
2nd down and 10 for the Wolverines, just short of the 40. Smith and Stevenson both come to the left. Stevenson, a walk-on from La Jolla, California. Wanted to play at Michigan, showed up, worked hard, finally is getting his chance. Rick Leach gives to Lytle. There he goes. Down to the Minnesota 42-yard line, first down.
Close one back there a moment ago with that telephone, and it's a red phone, and I guess that means hot line for the good calls that they're making. Let's take a look at the play again. This is a straight-up fullback slant-off tackle, and they run the option off of that. Minnesota expected Leach to keep the ball. Lytle had it, of course, behind excellent blocking for the first down.
They seem to prefer the offensive left side, don't they? 17 yards on that carry for Lytle. He now has 47 on 6 carries for the ball game. Leach turns around. Rick's going to keep it. He wiggles down to the 34-yard line. So he moves it from roughly the 43 down to about the 34. It'll be about a yard, maybe a yard and a half short of the first down.
And going into the game, Cal Stoll felt that it would be better to force Leach to keep the ball on the option plays rather than pitch it, because he was not quite as much of a breakaway threat, perhaps, as Huckleby or Lytle or even Smith coming around from his wingback position. But Leach is a very strong, very capable runner when he's forced to keep.
Inside a minute to go now in the first quarter. Leach gives to Huckleby. He's got the first down and then some as he gets to about the 29-yard line. And this Monday on ABC's NFL Monday Night Football, the Houston Oilers in Baltimore against the Colts. Baltimore only one game out of the AFC Central Division lead. The Houston Oilers and Baltimore Colts. It's a good one on ABC's NFL Monday Night Football at 9 Eastern Time, 8 Central over most of these ABC stations.
When you realize, Keith, that the whole Minnesota defensive plan was to force Michigan to pass, and that we've almost finished the first quarter, and they have yet to throw a single pass, and they've moved the ball with great ease, it gives you some idea of the offensive blocking power of the line.
First down at the 29-yard line. Leach going to throw the first pass of the afternoon. Throws it complete to Gene Johnson, number 88, the tight end. And Johnson is dropped, falls down, in effect, at about the 19-yard line. He's a 220-pound sophomore out of Flint, Michigan. And here from Bloomfield Hills, Mr. Bill Fleming.
Thank you, Keith. We have an update on the Syracuse-Pitt game. Pitt has scored now with Tony Dorsett going over on a 1-yard plunge. And that makes the score, of course, 10-7. Dorsett, by the way, has 10 carries so far for 47 yards this afternoon.
I might say, too, as they bring the chains on to measure for the first down for Michigan, Mr. Fleming and his lovely wife, Barbara, set a mighty fine table. They entertained us last evening. About a half of the football beyond the chain, so it is good for the first down.
This offense strikes everywhere, Keith. I don't believe I've seen a team that is as impressive as Michigan in quite some time. They can hit you down the middle, very, very quick backs and excellent line blocking, and then with the variety of options, you simply have got to guard the flanks on every snap.
As you saw, Bo Schembechler going for his 8th straight win against Minnesota. Give it away to Lytle, and he's inside the 10-yard line, close to another first down. Mark Donahue, number 60, opened the door for him, and he just blew through it.
And
first quarter is over. Michigan, I think the most revealing set of numbers there, Bud, lie within the rush, 128-5.
They're just total domination by the Michigan offense. The time of possession strongly in their favor. They're simply a better ball club thus far. Minnesota's tactics of trying to force them at the line of scrimmage. The offensive line of Michigan has just been too consistently good.
They mark it just short of the 10-yard line. Second down, 1 for the first down. Leach keeps. Punches in there and gets his first down just inside the 9. Of that 138 yards rushing, Lytle with 56 yards and Huckleby with 41 in the first half. Steve Mitbo made the tackle for Minnesota, but it is I'm almost sure, a first and goal. They're going to bring the chains, look like. The Minnesota people wanted him to come out and make sure as to where it was. Now they decide, nope, guess not necessary, so they'll mark it off. It'll be first down and goal to go from the 9-yard line.
two tight ends for Michigan on the last short yardage snap, but they bring Jim Smith, their great senior wingback, back into the game as a wide receiver on this snap.
Just beginning the second quarter of play. Wolverines trying to take it in for their second touchdown and the second time they've had the ball. Leach, Huckleby, slides down back on the 13-yard line. That time Minnesota had very good defensive flow.
The field is very, very slippery. I think if it rains a little more, Keith, that moisture will sort of seep down into this artificial turf, and the footing gets better. But when it just kind of stays on the top, it's very, very slick, almost like ice.
And it also gets everybody wet, and the football gets wet. Sometimes when you play on the artificial turf, that's your biggest problem because your shirt's wet and the ball's going to be wet. Might start squirting loose. We saw that last week in Lincoln, Nebraska, as Missouri attempted to snare. Second down, goal to go back on the 13-yard line for Michigan, and Leach drops the throw, gets a little pressure. Now he's loose, hits Lytle, touchdown!
Yeah, that's the dimension that Michigan is looking for on offense. They know they can run it. They'd like to be sure that they can also throw when they need to, and Leach looked awfully good on that play, avoiding the rush, hitting Lytle very cleanly. You see Minnesota putting pretty good pressure on here. Very fine block by Huckleby. Gets Leach to the outside. He's a left-handed thrower. Lytle is open in the corner, and he put the ball right on the numbers.
Lytle was left out there one-on-one against Steve Stewart, the linebacker, and Stewart just simply did not have the speed to handle him. Now here's Wood in the ball game. Out of Zuber's hole for the extra point. Nails it. 13 minutes and 44 seconds to go in the first half of play. Michigan's had the ball twice. They've scored twice. They lead in the ball game by a score of 14-0. Drive 11 plays in 70 yards, 4 minutes and 53 seconds. On their first touchdown march, it was 13 plays in 78 yards and 6:57. So there was a great deal of similarity in the two drives. However, one went for the touchdown at the end of a run, the other at the end of a pass. Now it is John Matthews, Bobby Weber, and Kent Kitchman deep for the Minnesota Golden Gophers, wearing the white. Bob Wood ready to kick it off for Michigan. Number 86, John Anderson, also up there. He moves with him, and sometimes he'll kick it, but it's Wood who hits a high drifting kick all the way back to the goal line to John Matthews. Dives across the 20, maybe the 22-yard line. And here's Bill now with more scores.
Yeah, and I think it's a good idea right now, Keith, to get up to date on the Eastern scores. Yale 14-0 over Cornell in the second quarter. And it's Dartmouth over Columbia, also moving toward halftime. 3-3, Penn and Princeton. Army over Air Force. And how about this one? Remember last year, 26-25, when Temple was nosed out in the last moments? We'll get more later.
Thank you, Bill. Here we go, Minnesota. First down at the 22-yard line. Michigan leading by a score of 14-0. Tony Dungy so far has been trying to move it through the air. This time he goes to the ground. It's John Matthews, 35, junior out of Peoria, carrying the ball. And the loud popping sound you heard, well, that came because Jerry Vogel, 39, and Jim Pickens, 18, just jumped right on top of him.
It's the first time that Minnesota's been able to break anything along the ground. They don't have the belief that their running attack is that consistent. They did put the man in motion that time. That gave Dungy a chance to read the reaction of Michigan against the motion man, which he'll utilize in his passing shortly.
Gained about 3 yards. Second down and 7, just beyond the 25. Dungy to throw. Gets his pass to the sideline to Matthews. The fullback, he spins around and falls out of bounds at about the 28-yard line. He gained about 3 yards on that. So it's going to be third down and a little bit less than 3 yards. Mr. Morton, number 77.
He's the most mobile defensive lineman in Michigan history, according to Bo Schlembecker. You can see how well he keeps his feet here. Fights through one blocker and then dives over the next blocker to almost reach Dungy before he delivers the ball. Had he had a little bit longer to throw it, Keith, had been a little more on target and might have picked up the first down.
And when you're as big and strong as he is, you grow all the flowers you want.
Nobody's going to argue with you.
Third down and 3 yards to go for Minnesota from the 28-yard line. Dungy's pass to the sidelines. It's good for the first down. Thrown to number 46, Ron Koulis. And so Minnesota staying with its game plan of using the short pass and playing primarily to the tight side of the field, or the closed side of the field, gets the first down.
They haven't been snuffed off totally on offense. Each time they've had the ball, they've made at least one first down, but it's very difficult to be that consistent with a forward pass to move it all the way down the field on the short ones.
Dungy has completed 7 passes in 10 attempts in the ball game, but he's only been able to pick up 44 yards on the 7 completions. That's about 6 yards per pass. Hand off this time inside to Matthews. He just dives over the right side, and there's almost nothing there for him. So it's going to bring up 2nd down and about 10 yards to go from out near the 37. Here's Bill again.
Okay, more scores from the East. Rutgers over Massachusetts 14-7 in the coming into the half. And Virginia Tech over West Virginia leading. North Carolina, Wake Forest. And Duke leading Georgia Tech. Okay, Keith.
And a 2nd down 10 from the 30, roughly 37-yard line, 36. Here's the pitch back, and slipping, sliding down is number 25, Bubby Holmes. Bubby, 180-pound senior out of Monessen, Pennsylvania, was the starter in the opening game, was hurt. Now he's coming back into playing shape. They'll mark the football back inside the 35, and it'll be 3rd down. They'll need 12.
Holmes is the quickest, most dangerous breakaway threat in the Minnesota backfield. That time he had a little running room, but unfortunately slipped.
Rain gear and umbrellas shining now as we've got a little mist falling here in Ann Arbor. More than 100,000 people for the 8th consecutive home game. 3rd and 12 for Minnesota. Dungy to throw. Good protection for Tony. Now runs out of it. Nobody to throw to. Just runs it straight upfield. He gets to the 45. Penalty flag goes down. Let's see where that call will go.
Looked as though he was running right into a beehive as all those blue shirts closed on him.
Jerry Zuber, number 8, the monster man, or the rover, made the tackle.
Zuber's a very intelligent football player. Playing the wolf man, you're kind of a rover. You line up in many places. Sometimes you're a linebacker, sometimes a defensive end, sometimes a halfback. Bo said that he played 2 years behind Dufek, who was everybody's All-American defensive player, and as a result of that has learned a great deal about it. It's one of the smartest football players in the field.
Penalty goes against Minnesota, obviously. Probably a clip. They back it up all the way to the 28-yard line. That's what it was, clipping on the quarterback's run. Let's check in with Bill again for more scores.
This is quite a surprise. Kentucky is leading Maryland in the first quarter. Maryland's quarterback, Mark Manges, was hit and sacked. He fumbled the ball. Kentucky scored on the very first play on a 26-yard pass from Ramsey to Dickerson. So 7-0 Kentucky.
Well, the Wildcats have been kind of tough this year. 3rd down and about a quarter of a mile for Minnesota. The ball back at the 28-yard line. They've got to go to the 47 to get their first down. Here's number 31, getting loose in the short secondary area. Steve Breaux, the tailback, and he's nowhere near the first down, so Minnesota's going to have to punt again. That brings Steve Tobin onto the field. Michigan will get the football for a 3rd time with 10 minutes and 20 seconds to play in the first half, with Michigan leading 14-0, and it's Jim Smith, number 37, going deep.
And theoretically, artificial turf is supposed to be much better than grass when it's wet and rainy, but this is such a light rain that the water is simply staying right on the surface and making the field almost glazed, which accounts for all of the slipping and sliding.
Tobin averaging 35 on 2 punts, hits it from the Smith. Smith's going to try to run it back, gets a little bit of blocking up in front. Now he's dropped at about the 36-yard line. So it's a 40-yard punt, 11 yards on the return, 9:53 go first half, and it's 14-0 Michigan. Minnesota cheerleaders on the sidelines absorbing some of the falling rain here in Ann Arbor as the Michigan Wolverines come up now. Call it first down at the 37-yard line. 3rd time they've had the ball. They've scored the first 2 times. They lead 14-0. Rick Leach is the quarterback. He hands the ball to Harlan Huckleberry. He runs it right up the middle and takes it from the 37 to about the 45. That's 8 yards. Next Saturday, NCAA football, the 7th-ranked Georgia Bulldogs at the Gator Bowl in Jacksonville, Florida, against the Florida Gators. And there's always thunder and lightning when those two get together. ABC Sports will bring you the 54th meeting of the South's oldest rivalries, Georgia and Florida, next Saturday at 2 Eastern, 1 Central, over most of these ABC stations. Cal Stoll hoping his Golden Gophers can reach in there. Come up there now with a 1-2-6-man front defensively, and Rob Lytle runs right out of the tackle. They had the Michigan fullback. Somebody hit him right at the line of scrimmage, but he just ran right through it. Steve Stewart. And Lytle goes all the way down to the Minnesota 32-yard line.
Let's watch it again if you young players want to see a man in perfect running position. See how low his shoulders are, what powerful leg drive he has. He simply ran through the block, picked up the first down. That's why he's averaging a little over 7 yards per carry. Minnesota, excuse me, Keith, keeps hoping that this Michigan team will make some kind of an offensive error. This is as consistent a team as I've seen. They just don't make any mistakes.
78 yards now for Lytle with 8:49 to go in the first half. First down at the Gopher 33. Leach hands to Lytle. And Rob takes it inside the 30 to the 27. And here's Bill again.
Keith, you were mentioning Georgia and Florida next week. Georgia is now leading in their ball game against Cincinnati 17-3. Ray Goff has scored a couple of touchdowns, and Alan Levitt has kicked a field goal. Cincinnati, of course, coming into that game unbeaten. Okay, we'll get to the Florida game in just a moment, but back to Michigan and Minnesota.
On second down and 5 yards to go for the Wolverines at the 28-yard line of Minnesota. Leach still got it. Going to keep it. Roll up out. Touchdown.
You see those big linemen pull and run a little faster than the man they're leading. That's why this team is so potent on offense.
You see also Rick Leach limping just a little bit as he took a shot off the hip earlier in the ball game, but he ran 28 yards for the touchdown. He got a great block with number 69, Darius Hara, pulling out of the line, the pulling guard. And you can see, I think there, Rick Leach is reflecting some pain. So now with the probability of a 21-0 lead, we might see Leach sit down. The Michigan Wolverines have had the football 3 times in this game, and they have scored 3 times to take a 21-0 lead. 8:02 to go in the first half. And here is getting wetter Jim Lampley.
You know, it's interesting to note, Keith, that usually the kinds of things that you and Coach Wilkinson have been able to talk about throughout the game, consistency, mistake tree performance, the #1 rating, would come from an experienced team. Michigan is perhaps the youngest team we've had all year on our ABC College Football Series. You look at the depth chart, 20 of their first 22 players on offense will be back next year. Another 15 of the first 22 on defense. That's 35 or 44 back. They should be awesome next year, right? Perhaps the most consistent unit on the team right now is that offensive line ahead of Rick Leach and the other offensive backs. 5 juniors and a sophomore. They will all be back next year. Keith?
Thank you, Jim. Yes, indeed. It's something to consider for next year. The touchdown scored by number 7, the quarterback, Rick Leach, this way.
You can see Donahue pulling out to lead. Leach has lots of running room as he gets beautiful downfield blocks. That's Lytle coming across there. Not blocking on Snyder to open it up for Leach, and he just has speed enough to make it into the corner for the score. Every down, Lytle makes something happen. When he doesn't have the ball, he's knocking somebody down.
All right, Bob Wood now will kick it off for Michigan. It's a knuckleball. It goes into the end zone. Weber lets it skip on by. The Minnesota Gophers will have the ball first down at their own 20-yard line. And you can see now how the weather has turned here. We started the morning with a temperature in the 30s, the middle 30s, went up into the 40s. And now it's starting to dribble some rain and getting a little bit warmer, probably into the low 50s tonight in this part of the country. The scoring drive for Michigan only took a minute 51 to go 63 yards in 4 plays.
Took them 13 plays the first time, Keith, 11 the second time. I don't know if that's a bad omen for the Gophers or not.
All right, the Wolves deploy defensively as they send a 5-man front up there. Anderson standing up at the defensive right end position, drops off the line now a little bit. That's Tony Dungy. Hands the ball off inside to number 25, Bobby Holmes. And Holmes, from the 20-yard line, wiggles to about the 23.
The weakness that this Michigan team has, and he was supposed to be in their defensive group. The offense, everybody respected very much, but defensively, people still are wondering how tough are they. This afternoon, they certainly look awfully tough to me.
But again, to emphasize what we said earlier, Bo Schembechler would like to see his ball club get into a pretty good fight to find out himself just how good they are. They have 190 yards in rushing so far in this ball game. Minnesota 15. Dungy puts it in the air, throws on a sideline pattern to Koulis, and Koulis can't reach it as he put the ball a little bit behind him. Of course, that's where he wanted to throw the ball, because to have put it up in front might have invited interception by the crowding Wolverine defense.
And John Anderson, the defensive end that time, dropped off. Had he dropped off just one step further, he would have been in position to pick off that pass. He was looking for it on every snap. Minnesota left to curl it to the inside to get away from the drop.
It'll be third down. They need 7 yards from the 23 for the first down. Straight back. Dundee in trouble. Steps out of trouble. Throws. Pass complete to Holmes coming out of the backfield. I do think he's short of the 30, however, as he made the catch at about the 29-yard line. John Hennessy, number 71, was the man that almost got the quarterback. And the pursuers upfield for Michigan refused to let Holmes turn upfield, and they held him short of the first down.
Dungey really is a remarkable quarterback. The move he made there gives you some idea of his overall skill. He's from Jackson, Michigan, which is an unusual thing for a Michigan boy to be playing at Minnesota. When he made the choice, he felt that at Michigan there were too many people that would be playing ahead of him. It would be a little while before he played. Dennis Franklin, some of the other great Michigan quarterbacks, and Michigan State was going through a coaching change. Those things convinced him to go to Minnesota.
Steve Tobin hits it very high on fourth down and making the fair catch, Jim Smith. And we get a penalty flag thrown as apparently one of the Minnesota players came downfield and crowded Smith on the catch. So it was a little bump, but not much.
It really didn't look to me like he hit him much, Keith.
Well, it's going to be a penalty against the Golden Gophers, just exactly what they need, right? With 6:31 to go first half, trailing 21-0. Wrapped in a towel to keep it dry, Stacy Johnson, number 9, is in at quarterback for Michigan. Rick Leach with a damaged left leg, knee and hip, apparently both kind of bruised. Johnson is a sophomore. He's out of Camden, New Jersey. He has not played that much this season. He's only thrown it twice. He's completed both of them. He's run the ball for 14 times at 63 yards. So we see a new quarterback for the Wolverines. Johnson goes down the line, keeps it, turns it upfield. And from the midfield, he gets about 1 yard before the Gophers, Mark Slater and Steve Stewart, make the tackle. We have Russell Davis, number 33, a sophomore from Woodbridge, Virginia, in at fullback for Michigan.
It's a very good time to get some experience with your younger players. Johnson could have pitched the ball that time, Keith, but on the first snap, I think all quarterbacks are a little bit leery of making too risky a play. You want to get a little bit of a feel of the game. That's why you kept the ball.
With Russell Davis in at fullback, Rob Lytle drops back to tailback, and he's just as effective there as he is at the other position. Johnson hands the ball off to the fullback, Davis. Davis throws it over the left side. On 2nd down and 1, he goes for 8. It'll be 3rd down and 1. And here's Jim.
Well, it didn't take him long to answer your questions about whether Leach would play anymore. He's probably going to play, he tells me, some in the second half. But for the rest of the first half, he'll rest the bruised thigh. And as you can see now, the training staff moving some ice up and down the leg to try to get it soft. Keith?
3rd down, make it 2 yards for Michigan at the Minnesota 43-yard line, and they give it to Lytle over the left side, and they love to go to that left side for the tough yards, and they get it again, apparently, for a first down. Mark Merrill on the tackle for Minnesota. They move in behind Zara Ken with Downing, the center, and sometimes you'll have that tight end lined up on that side, but I'm particularly impressed the way the left side of that Michigan line can open the door when they want it open.
I very much am too, Keith. Davis at fullback is 6'2", weighs 215, and in high school he high jumped 6'9".
39-yard line of Minnesota. Lytle. And Rob is inside the 35 to the 34. He got 5 yards, 4:40 to go in the first half, and here's Bill again with most scores.
Well, here's something. Over in Cleveland today, Notre Dame and Navy battling, and Navy is leading Notre Dame 14-3. After Notre Dame scored first, Navy came back with a couple of touchdown passes. And so, in that ball game with 9 minutes and 53 seconds to go in the second quarter, Navy in front.
Navy seems to like to jump on the Irish for some reason. Every once in a while, they sneak up on them.
You got that same kind of rain that we have here. It's a little tough for Notre Dame to put those points up there to get even again.
On 2nd down and 6. It looked to me like somebody was moving too soon, but I don't see any penalty flags on the field. Stacy Johnson, the quarterback, keeping it, just trying to blow it up the middle behind his center, Walt Downing, number 72. There's Rick Leach on the sidelines as they're working on him. He took a pretty good whack when he went into the corner of the end zone a while ago, and rattled around some. So it looks to me like that whole leg is probably beat up a little bit.
It was a very nifty little quarterback sneak that Johnson ran that time. Made it look almost like it was illegal procedure.
That's right. 3rd down, 4 yards to go. Johnson coming down the line, pitches the ball back to Rob Lytle, the tailback, and Lytle going for the first down, gets it. As he takes it to the 26-yard line, George Adzik, who's playing with a thigh contusion himself, made the tackle for Minnesota. Make it the 27-yard line. It's good enough for the first down. Each year, Big Ten schools award a Conference Medal of Honor presented to the student athlete demonstrating the highest proficiency in scholarship and athletics. Included among the past winners for this award, Minnesota graduate Charles Bud Wilkinson, the distinguished gentleman sitting to the right side. He's got that plaque hanging right on the wall. Looks at it every morning, right?
Nope.
Rob Lytle carries the ball, snaps it in there on first down from the 27-yard line, and he bangs in there and he wiggles a little bit, and then he slam that foot down and get a little leverage on you, and the first thing you know, he's got 5.
And that Michigan line is knocking Minnesota back off the line of scrimmage so far with their initial charge that even though it appears as though they have not bent very much, as Keith's already pointed out, they're picking up 4 or 5 yards. They just knock them back.
And Lytle has now gone past 100 yards in the ball game. 13 carries, 102 yards. Call it second down, long 5 from the 22 of Minnesota. Stacey Johnson playing in relief of Rick Leach, gives it back to Lytle. And Lytle slides it on down about the 15-yard line. You know something? Steve Stewart, number 97, had a chance to make that tackle, and that's the 3rd time in the ball game now. He's had a shot at somebody, and he cannot raise the right arm up. That time, if he had been able to raise up that right arm, he'd have been able to make the tackle. And a couple of series ago, we saw that. Now watch him. Watch 97.
He's got very good speed coming across the field, and watching his arms move there, it doesn't appear that he's got a shoulder problem.
See?
He simply did not get the arm up with any strength, and Lytle ran through it.
That's the 3rd time that that's happened. So obviously that right shoulder or right arm must be sore. First down at the 15-yard line. Johnson. He's down to the 7.
Looked like Merrill had a good shot at him, and he ran through Merrill.
So Michigan continues to grind along, trying for the 4th touchdown before halftime. Here's Bill.
All right, Maryland now has come back, but they missed the extra point after a 10-yard run by Mark Manges, the quarterback. So Kentucky still leads that one 7-6. But how about this? Mississippi State in the first quarter leading Alabama 14-0. Okay, Keith.
Thank you, Bill.
Going to be a few words at halftime from Bear Bryant.
Second down and 2 for the first down from the 7-yard line. Fumble. Minnesota gets the ball. So finally the ball comes loose. And the Golden Gophers' Ron Robel comes up with it to stop Michigan from scoring their 4th touchdown. 1:24. All right, let's watch number 97, Steve Stewart. Robel is in there to make the whack, and now watch the ball come popping loose from Russell Davis. And Stewart is in the right place at the right time.
The ball just took that proper bounce, and that's, of course, what Minnesota needed. Michigan error. Michigan had not had a penalty. They'd played absolutely errorless football until they made that fumble.
And they've had it for a long time. 18 minutes and 48 seconds. Minnesota only 9:48. 1:24 to go. And they're going to clear some of the band folks out of the way. They're waiting to do their performance at halftime. Coming up after the ball game, Prudential College scoreboard, except on the West Coast, where you'll see ABC's Wide World of Sports, Motorcycle Daredevil Evel Knievel in Seattle, World Weightlifting Championships from Moscow. That's at 5 Eastern, 4 Central Time over most of these ABC stations.
Well, those band people are kind of like the players. They want to get on the field very quickly. The referee must expect a bad play from Minnesota because he backed them way off the end line.
Tony Dungy, the quarterback. Last week, Pete Woods went in the end zone and threw a bomb, but Dungy does not do it. And Kitzman hurdling at the line of scrimmage. And I shouldn't say hurdling because that's against the rules. He just jumped over somebody and got it out to about the 10-yard line.
And that's the best-looking offensive running play that Minnesota's run. They were in the power I, which is their short yardage formation, backed up against the goal line. They got good blocking from it.
Say hurdling, you wake up Dave Nelson. He'd get all disturbed over that.
Yes, he would.
The rules man. At the 10-yard line. Second down, they need about 3.5 yards for the first down. Clock running, 50 seconds to go first half. Kitzman again, wedges, and he's out to about first down area. And they'll stop the clock now with 41 seconds to go in the first half to move the change. And it's good for the first down as Kent Kitzman, 6'2", 202 sophomore, Rochester, Minnesota.
And that power I formation looked good for Minnesota on those 2 snaps. We'll probably see it a great deal more.
If you're planning a golf game or coming this way for an autumn vacation, check your weather map. It's chilly and getting wet. First down, Gophers. Tunji may put it up. Don't know. Nope, won't do it. Gives it to his tailback, and number 71, John Hennessy, is right there. Big senior out of Chicago.
Tackled by John Hennessy with Tom Tedesco.
Inside 10 seconds now as time ticks off in the first half for the Michigan Wolverines, holding a 21-0 lead. Scored the first 3 times they had the ball. Almost put a 4th one in, but the fumble cost them that opportunity. The half is over. Now here is Jim Lempley.
Doctor told me he'd do this if he was up 20-0. You missed by a point.
Well, we had 3 good drives, and then a little disappointed we lost that touchdown there at the end.
Almost perfect, though, the whole...
A close one. Boston College and Villanova also tied. Rutgers trying to go for number 16 in a row. Boston U over Colgate. Colgate undefeated up to today. Virginia Tech 7-0 over West Virginia at halftime. North Carolina over a Wake Forest team that was impressive when they played in Ann Arbor. Duke now leading Georgia Tech 17-0. I think you'd have to categorize that as a surprise. How about this one? Northwestern over Iowa in the quarter.
Rick Leach, the Michigan quarterback, warming up on the sidelines. He had a noticeable limp when he came back onto the field. He has bruised his left leg up in the thigh area. It is not known whether or not Rick will play. I would get the feeling right here, Bud, that he probably is going to at least handle his first offensive series because Minnesota will be kicking off to Michigan.
When you have played a first half as well as Michigan has, from a coaching standpoint, Keith, you're always concerned about your team letting down in the second half. And you try to tell them the score is 0-0. We've got to go out and get control of the situation again as we look at the halftime statistics showing total domination by the University of Michigan. The time of possession, the total yardage gained. They made 1 turnover, which prevented a touchdown on the 4-yard line right before the half. But other than that, they played a perfect 30 minutes of football.
Rick Leach is warming with Stacy Johnson. Johnson played in that closing march, and young man, the sophomore, looked very good. There he is, number 9. So we'll see whether or not it's Johnson or Leach as we start. Michigan in possession of the ball unless they fumble it away here on the kickoff. It is a high kick. It is a short kick for Minnesota. It is taken by Smith at the 15-yard line. Jim Smith looking for a little daylight, finds it, and brings it on out to about the 33-yard line. When it looked like they had him, suddenly they didn't have him. And you talk about people who do everything. On the kickoff return team, it is Rob Lytle, who's out there to throw a block to bust him loose. Now it's Rick Leach who goes out to answer the call to start this second half at quarterback. Huckleby, number 25, is the tailback. The fullback will be Lytle with Huckleby in there. When Davis is in, Lytle goes to tailback, and Jim Smith is your wingback. Sometimes he'll come in a counter on a reverse. Here we go now. At the 33-yard line, it's first down for Michigan. And Leach keeps the ball. He doesn't look like he's got a sore leg, does he? He runs it all the way to the Minnesota 48-yard line. Mark Donahue, number 60, threw a big block for him on that. Here are the big guys up front working for the Michigan Wolverines. At the wide receiver, Kurt Stevenson, number 85, just showed up and said, "Coach, I want to play for you." Mike Kinn, number 78, is the tackle. Zara, number 69, a guard. Walt Downing, number 72, the big guy snapping the ball. Mark Donahue just threw the big block for them. Bill Dufek, and he's a mountain of a man, is still growing. Gene Johnson, number 88, the tight end. Bill is the younger brother of Don Dufek, who was the Wolfman here at Michigan and made All-American. Handoff goes to the big fullback, Russell Davis. And Davis is on the run from the 48-yard line down to the 32 of Minnesota. And here come the Wolverines picking up right where they left off.
They certainly didn't leave any of their aggressiveness in the locker room at halftime, Keith. That line is just simply superb, and as was pointed out in the first half, this Michigan offensive team has only 2 seniors. Lytle, the tailback fullback, and Jim Smith, the wingback. The rest of them are juniors, with Johnson, the tight end, a sophomore. So they've got a lot of football ahead of them, and they're a great team right now.
Lytle is a tailback. Leach is still in at quarterback. First down as they go for 33-yard line. Ball is handed off to Jim Smith, coming around on that reverse, and he's inside the 30. They get him at about the 27-yard line. Michael Hunt, number 84, made the tackle. Defensively for Minnesota, they're lined up Merrill, Midbow, Slater, Ronan, and Robel, Hunt and Stewart, the linebackers, Brown, Adzik, Snyder, and Weber, the defensive backs for Minnesota.
It's very difficult defensively to keep your morale high when you have played 30 minutes of football and have not stopped the opponents yet. Michigan did not punt in the first half. The only thing that stopped them on their 4 possessions was a fumble on the Minnesota 4-yard line.
The football is at the 27-yard line. It's second down and about 5 yards to go. Lytle. I think you saw something there that's been most impressive to me. When Walt Downing, number 72, snaps that ball, I mean to tell you, he comes off the snap moving. And he has, on many occasions today, been able to seal the Minnesota nose guard completely out of the play.
Minnesota's great nose guard, George Washington, is hurt, did not make the trip, and they sorely miss him on defense, but the Michigan line takeoff has been superb. Coaches are always talking about how important first down is, and Michigan has averaged 5.6 yards on first down thus far this afternoon. Minnesota's averaged only 1.8 yards, not even 2 yards a try on first down.
Gene Calhoun, the referee, showing you that it's just short of the first down, so it'll be third down and about 8 or 10 inches for that first down. On third down conversion so far in the ball game, if you like those numbers, Michigan's perfect, 5 for 5. Hello, going to go a little trick-or-treating there tonight, right?
I hope not unaware.
Well, some are doing it tonight, and some are doing it tomorrow night. Some places don't want them out running around on Sunday night. Third down and very short. Minnesota almost jumped. Hand off to Davis, and the Gophers got him, I think. His surge might have carried him just far enough, but there was very good penetration that time defensively by number 98, Jim Ronan.
The ball carried by Russell Davis.
Use fancy words like penetration and all this kind of stuff, but so far, all of the gambling that Minnesota had hoped to do, all of the slanting that they've been trying to do, has not been particularly successful.
Michigan takes pretty good splits along that offensive line, but their balance and their stance and their takeoff, they're getting to Minnesota before Minnesota can make those lateral moves.
Stevenson wide right, first down for the Wolverines. Leach sets up the throw. Got Smith wide open. Touchdown. 22 yards.
How good are they, Keith? This afternoon, they got to look as good as any team we've seen. And I know they're looking ahead to Ohio State on November 20th.
They have Illinois next, then Purdue, then Ohio State.
They could get slipped up on, but the odds are certainly against it. All of the chips will be on the line when they play in Columbus on November 20th.
12:16 to go in the third quarter. Bob Wood for the extra point out of Jerry Zuber's hole. Perfect. And so the Michigan Wolverines open the second half of play. Their first possession, they take it in. They lead 28.
The pass play that took for the touchdown. You can see the fine fake to Davis. Leach comes back, moving to his left as a left-handed thrower. He's got great balance as he delivers the ball. A post pattern. Smith is open, hit perfectly right on the numbers by Leach. And Leach's passing is one thing that was a little bit lacking last year in his play when he was a freshman starting quarterback for the University of Michigan. This afternoon, he certainly appears to have all of the components. He handles the option beautifully. He runs himself very well, and he's been throwing strikes each time.
Wood now ready to kick off. Middle man for Minnesota, Bobby Weber, flanked by John Matthews and Kent Kitzman. And it's not a very good kick. That'll cost them 5. They'll bring it back and do it again. Gives me time to say this. There was a time when only the elite athlete enjoyed the high school athletics, but now several million high school boys and girls are benefiting from interscholastic athletics at the junior varsity, sophomore, and freshman levels. The National Federation of State High School Association urges your support of high school athletic programs at all levels of competition for everybody. Well, they'll back them up now and kick from the 35-yard line, and that is only the second mistake that Michigan has made this afternoon.
It looked to me like they were practicing one of their onside kicks a little bit, being ahead 28-0. They angle the ball high across the field, and they should be behind sometime, and they need to try to get the ball in a kickoff. Game practice and game experience is very helpful to you.
You see once in a while that Anderson, number 86, who is the Michigan punter, and he hasn't hit it a lick yet today, he'll come across, step into the ball, and kick it toward the corner. Otherwise, it is Wood.
think they want to just keep his leg in shape a little bit because he's only punted 17 times this season.
John standing there on the 30-yard line. Now, he starts moving as Wood comes up. This time Bob hits that knuckleball, and it goes skittering downfield, and it's picked up by Weber for Minnesota. And Bobby just can't find anywhere to run. So the junior from Manitowoc, Wisconsin, is dropped down at about the 24-yard line. Tony Dungy, number 9, answers the call for Cal Stowe's Gophers now. Ken Kitzman has been in at tailback most of the day. Number 44, John Matthews, the fullback, number 35. And the wide receiver or wingback, number 46, Ron Koulis. So at the 24-yard line, here comes Minnesota, sending Jeff Anhorn, number 86, wide to the left side. Michigan out on top 28-0 with 12:10 to go, third quarter. Dungy back to throw. Tony gets it away just in time, throws it right into the crowd, and Calvin O'Neill almost picked it off. The offensive front now for the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Going into the second half, Jeff Anhorn, the wide receiver, 86. At tackle, Terry Matula, number 62. Guard, Gary Ackromite, 66. Center, Kevin Natty, number 58. Greg Schaff, the right guard, 63. 76, Jeff Morrow, tackle. And the tight end is Glenn Borkman, number 83. With the sun shining, obviously, we shot those pictures yesterday. Second down and 10 yards to go from the 24-yard line. Dungy lucky he got away without an interception on that one. Hands the ball off to his fullback Matthews. He runs it out to the 29-yard line for about 5 yards.
And the Michigan linebackers are playing about 4.5 to 5 yards off the line of scrimmage, expecting Dungy to throw the ball often, which he has done and which he will continue to do.
Kitzman leaves now from the tailback position, and Steve Broe, a sophomore out of Hudson, Wisconsin, comes in.
Dungy's been a great performer for the University of Minnesota, has broken all the total offensive records, also an excellent student. He's a business marketing major and has a 3.5 grade average.
Mike Jones, 45, double wide left side with Koulis on 3rd down and 6. Dungy under pressure. Morton just misses into pass. His drill. Penalty flag goes down. May have a roughing call back there as Hennessy and Morton, the two defensive tackles, level Dungy. Anhorn makes the catch, or it could be a holding call against Minnesota. It's going to be holding against Minnesota. Gophers back there trying to protect their quarterback, and here were number 77 Morton and 71 Hennessy, and they were just not going to be stopped.
I'm impressed with Dungy. He's not had much opportunity to do anything, Keith, but he's cool, he's strong, he stands in there with poise. He was really pressured that time and delivered a fine pass. Michigan now trying to make up their mind what they want to do. If they refuse the penalty, it'll bring up a 4th down. Let's talk about ABC's NFL Monday Night Football while they're making their decision. The Houston Oilers will be in Baltimore against the Colts. Bum Phillips taking his troops from Texas. Only one game out of the AFC Central Division, going against the Colts and quarterback Burt Jones. Jones coming on. Many say he's the best right now at his particular position. We'll find out as the Houston defense tests him and the Colts on ABC's NFL Monday Night Football, 9 Eastern Time, 8 Central over most of these ABC stations. Obviously, they accept the penalty. Back to Minnesota, well back to the 10-yard line where it's 3rd down and 25. Roughly 24. Dungy in trouble. Well, it worked. They got it. They will not give him a safety on it. The crowd yelling for the safety as they took him back into the end zone. They're going to mark the ball at around the 1 or 2 yard line as John Hennessy, 71, was the first man in the black shirt to get him. It's a dark blue, but it looks black right now to Minnesota. Minnesota did not expect to get that kind of a rush. It was long yardage. Michigan, instead of playing very careful pass protection on the long yardage play, decided to put the pressure on. The strategy worked extremely well. And we've got 9 men on the line of scrimmage now for the University of Michigan, getting ready to pressure the Minnesota punter.
Just in case they get it out all right, White Hicks 17 and Jim Smith 37. Let's see if they do send 9. We've got 9 of them up there. They're all going. But the kick is away by Tobin, and it's a very good spiral coming all the way back to the 42-yard line for Jim Smith. And Smith cracks through to about the 30-yard line. So Michigan now will get the football, obviously in good field position. Let's spend a moment with Jim Lampley.
This is Phil Hubbard from the Michigan basketball team, also from the U.S. Olympic gold medal winning basketball team. Phil, a couple of preseason magazines are going to pick you guys #1 in basketball. What do you think of that?
We're real glad about that. You know, we just hope that as a team we can get together, you know, and win mostly all our games. But we're happy that we're number one. We're going to try to prove that it's true.
You're going to have to be number one to be big men on campus as long as these guys are, huh?
Right. Football players got having a good season. Hopefully we have a good season in basketball, too.
Thanks a lot, Phil Hubbard. Keith?
Thank you, Jim. At the 30-yard line, Rick Leach is still in the quarterback, keeps the ball. And you can see, I think, there, as Rick started to turn it upfield, he had to plant on that left leg, and it really didn't give him a whole lot of spring. He wiggles in for about 3, but it did not look as snappy as he has on previous carries.
And it didn't really appear that they had made any yardage on the play, but again, that Michigan line simply takes off so well with the snap, and they penetrate, knocking the Minnesota people back. That even though it doesn't appear people are blocked very cleanly, they pick up 3 or 4 yards.
Leach has now run 8 times, 79 yards. Rob Lytle, of course, has already passed 100. Second down, 7 from the 26. Outside, it is Lytle. First man misses him. First man very seldom seems to get him. And Lytle is inside the 25 to the 24 at least. Adzik was the man who had a shot at him. Number 20 could not get a handle on it.
This great back thing has run through some tackles with his strength. And when you're trying to stop somebody like that, Adzik thought he'd hit him a little high that time. Lytle's so agile, he simply ducked, and Adzik went right over the top.
8:45 to go, third quarter. Michigan on top, 28-0. Folks on the sidelines, a little bit drippy and wet, but having fun anyhow. Out of the I formation, Davis, the fullback. Smith and Stevenson to the left side. Here's Leach back to throw. Throws short. Screen set up, but the screen is broken down on a good defensive play as he throws to Lytle. The play was read very well by Minnesota. Coming in to make the stop, number 87, Ron Robel. Here's Bill Fleming.
Keith, you mentioned earlier about our game next week, our national telecast at 2 o'clock Eastern Time. Florida and Georgia could very well be for the lead in the SEC. Florida now out in front of Auburn, 17-6. Auburn going into that game undefeated in SEC play, and Georgia is leading 24-17. Here's a field goal attempt. Let's watch it.
Bob Wood will hit it out of Jerry Zuber's hole. He'll hit it at the 36. It's a 46-yard try. First time in 7 possessions for Michigan, they failed to convert on third down. They hit a 46-yard field goal off the foot of Bob Wood. 7:51 to go, third quarter. It's now 31-0.
The 9th-ranked Nebraska Cornhuskers coming back after a defeat last week, 21-0, leading Kansas at halftime.
Yeah, the Huskers, I suppose, a little bit upset after Missouri jumped on them with that 98-yard bolt of lightning. Michigan, as you can see, has scored on 5 of its 6 possessions of the ball game. And with 7:51 to go in the third quarter, we'll now kick it off to Minnesota.
That field goal was a little more important to Michigan than I think a lot of people realize. Field goals missed have caused them trouble against Ohio State. They missed one against Illinois, but probably not against Illinois earlier in the season.
Yeah, 39 pass.
And that successful field goal will give them confidence.
High kick goes to Weber at the 6-yard line. Bobby coming up the sidelines, and he gets ripped over there at about the 22-yard line. 16 yards on the return. More scores, Bill.
All right, Keith. And in the first quarter, Texas and Texas Tech are tied 7-7. Texas Tech scored first, and then Texas came back with Costanzo scoring on a rollout. So with about 3:40 to go in the first quarter, 7-7.
That game's going to have a great bearing on the Southwestern Conference champion.
Well, the 2 Red Raiders in the country still undefeated, both having a struggle today, Texas Tech and Colgate. Tony Dungy now sets number 31 Groh at tailback on first down from his 22-yard line. Gives it to Bro. Gets him out in the open, and he takes it up to the 25, 26-yard line. That's about 5 yards, maybe, on that carry. Jerry Meter, number 46, a sophomore from Birmingham, Michigan, to stop for the Wolves. Give him 4, make it 2nd and 6.
I was talking, Keith, about how big football players are, and yet speed is the essential factor, and that's what makes Michigan the great team that they are. The team speed, both on offense and defense. That play looked like it was wide open, and winds up making just 4 yards because they recover so quickly.
Jim Pickens out in the secondary. Derek Howard is in. Dungy rolling right, got some room to run, pulls it down, and now he gets hammered from behind by number 54, Steve Graves, the Michigan middle guard. And when you see a quarterback running down the line, it's not a matter of indecision on his part. He just couldn't find a friendly white shirt to throw to.
When you see a team that's being dominated like Minnesota is, you wonder, is Minnesota having an off day, or is this Michigan team truly superb? Are they one of the great teams in college football? Minnesota's been riddled a little bit by injuries, but they've been a good football team going into this game, and Michigan simply dominated them.
Third down and 3 yards. The pass is complete. Penalty flag is on the field. Calvin O'Neill right there to make the tackle on Ron Kulis, but hold on for the flag. 14-yard pickup. It will be good for the first down if the call does not go against Minnesota. Nope, won't. It's against Michigan, and Kulis is down.
Let's take a look at the penalty that called interference here, and you can see Kulis as he's going down the field is hit. Pardon me, that's number 86 is Stamburn, and you can see that he was really tackled as he went down the field. He's a hockey player, and I guess that's the kind of treatment he normally gets on the ice, but the call was correct. Let's take a look at the completion. Kulis breaking down the field and just circles into the clear zone. Dungy was running with the ball, found him open. He was hit very, very hard, as you can see, kind of sandwiched between the two Michigan defenders, one of whom is Calvin O'Neill. Shaken up on the play, but it's first down, Minnesota.
Dwight Hicks, number 17, was the man that really nailed him from the blind side. 6 minutes and 28 seconds to go in the third quarter. And coming up immediately following, we'll have the Prudential School Board, except on the West Coast, where you'll see ABC for the Minnesota Golden Gophers with 6:03 to go in the third quarter. At the 9, he stacked up Ronan, defensive right side tackle for Minnesota, among the first to get there.
The last possession before Michigan kicked the field goal was the first time that they have been stopped by Minnesota. The only other possession they had where they did not put points on the board was when they fumbled on the 4-yard line right before the end of the half. We have a Minnesota player down.
And Steve Midbow down indicates the left shoulder is hurting him. And while we've got a time on the field with 5:24 to go third quarter, here's Bill.
And we have our telephones humming up here trying to find out what's going on across the country. Ohio State now leading Indiana 12-7. The Buckeyes were trailing at one point 7-6. Oklahoma in front of Colorado 7-3. Kenny King on a 71-yard run for Oklahoma.
They're playing out in Boulder. That's a hard place to win.
And, you know, we have another update, Keith, while we just have a moment here. Pittsburgh now is leading 20-13 over Syracuse, and Dorsett has now 170 yards today in 27 carries and a couple of touchdowns. So he continues to set records. All right, let's go to Jim Lampley.
And the injury situation continues to go from bad to worse for Minnesota while they work on one player out on the field, number 78. Ron Kulis, number 46, the wide receiver whom you saw come off a few moments ago, has a back injury of currently indeterminate nature. Could be just bruises or muscle spasms, but it's possible that something would be wrong with the spinal column, and consequently, Kulis is not going to play anymore today. Keith?
Well, I tell you, when the black cloud gets on your back, it just sits there, doesn't it?
Cal Stoll thought that he had the best team of his tenure at Minnesota this year, and they were sailing along very well until they began to hit that rash of injuries. And yesterday he said that we are close to being a very good team, but we're just not deep enough to afford to lose anyone.
All right, Bill.
Okay, you know, that's Luke Loper, by the way, right there in that funny-looking hat, gymnastics coach at Michigan. Maryland now up on top of Kentucky. Maryland just 14-7, and Notre Dame has come back against Navy, trailing in that ball game at one time, 14-3.
And here at Ann Arbor, in Michigan Stadium, the Wolverines total 354 yards so far in this ball game to 92 for Minnesota. So the entirety of the day has belonged to Michigan as Steve Midbow goes out of the lineup, and Steve Cunningham, number 70, will come in to replace him.
Minnesota had been playing very good field position football until the last two possessions. Michigan getting the ball on the Minnesota 30 and then getting it on the 39. Prior to that time, Minnesota had turned it over to them in their own territory where they had to go a long way to score.
Ball is just inside the 10 now. It is second down and 7 yards to go for the first down for Michigan. Each in there at quarterback. Huckleby the tailback and Lytle the fullback. And it's Huckleby. He's down to about the 6-yard line where they're going to need 3 more yards for the first down. Feet taken out from under him by Steve Stewart, number 97 of Minnesota. Minnesota's first loss of the year came in Seattle against the Washington Huskies. Washington playing UCLA in Seattle this afternoon, and that's a field in which the UCLA Bruins have been having their problems. UCLA has not won up there in 18 years in 9 ball games. The Bruins have failed to win at Seattle, so a lot of people out there watching that game as well as the USC California game, which is being played in Los Angeles. 3rd down and 3 yards to go for Michigan at the Minnesota 6. Leach going to keep it. Touchdown. Both guards pull. Sarah and Donahue. And he had an escort into the end zone. I think Rick's done enough work for today. It was 4:24 to go in the 3rd quarter. It is now 37-0.
Those 2 big guards pulling ahead of you. One of them, Zara, weighing 240, Donahue weighing 245, are the kind of escorts that ball carriers really love to see. They've got great speed, as we've talked.
Jerry Zuber will hold it for Bob Wood. His 5th conversion try plus a field goal, and he's got 8 points. With 4 minutes and 24 seconds to go in the 3rd quarter, let us have another look as Michigan builds its lead to 38-0.
They've got a tremendous variety of how they run the option. There's a reverse pivot and the fake to the fullback hitting down the middle. That gives the 2 guards a chance to get out ahead of it. This is Donahue leading now as Ardo went back to block. They both turn up the field. Leach was ready to pitch the ball if he had to, but when he saw that clean, clear lane, he simply turned down the speed to score. Let's watch it again. You can see the reverse pivot here and the fake of the fullback up the middle. That freezes the defense and lets the guards get out ahead. Huckleby is way out wide. He's in position to get the ball, but no need to throw it when you get that kind of blocking.
And Michigan now will kick it off as Minnesota breaks the huddle on the sidelines. Obviously the coach saying, come on guys, let's keep our composure and go out here and play some football now. When the score 38-0 against them, it is a testing time.
I think they'll get to look at some new players in Michigan, and perhaps they can move against the second group.
Anderson kicks off. It goes to Kitzman. And Kent Kitzman brings it back to the 28-yard line, where it'll be a 1st down. That's a return of about 20 yards for Kitzman, who's been playing tailback for much of the day for the Minnesota Gophers. Well, I think it's fair to say that there's no question but what Bo Schembechler is, in fact, rehearsing and rehearsing and rehearsing. He's had that luxury somewhat throughout this season because of his schedule. He didn't make the schedule, but he wants very much, as every Michigan man in the world wants very much, a win at Columbus on November 20. And that's a game, of course, you'll see over most of these ABC stations. Tony Dungy hands the ball off to his tailback, and Kitzman just simply has no place to go. Tom Sebren, 91. One of the big hitters right there, and you are, in fact, getting some substitution along the defensive unit for Michigan now.
It's been a little drought for Michigan against Ohio State. They won in 1971 10-7, but in 72 they were defeated 14-11. They had a tie in 73, and then in 74 got beat 12-10, and last year 21-14. So they'd like to break that spell, and they're certainly going to try hard to do it on November 20th.
A loss on the preceding play of about 6 yards. The ball back to the 22-yard line as Bro goes in motion. Now sets into a slot as they go wide with 3 men on the open side of the field. Dungy rolls that way, but can't find anybody to throw the ball to. Nobody. He looked downfield. He saw Mike Jones. Jones had double coverage. And then he started looking to the other side, and there was nobody open there. So he did the proper thing. He pulled it down and ran it out of bounds.
Trying to find any fault in this Michigan team is very difficult from the standpoint of field position football. Minnesota's taking the ball on their own 28-yard line that time, Keith, was the best field position they've had on the exchange all afternoon.
The only way you're going to play this Michigan football team, Bud, is to meet them with quickness.
You've got to be able to have an offense that gives you the ball at least half the time, and preferably much more than half the time, because Michigan will score against anybody.
3rd down, and about 14 yards to go for the 1st down. As Dungy is caught and dropped. Jerry Meter, number 46, penetrating. A linebacker, and he was coming all the way. With an obvious passing down, Dungy went straight back that time and gave Meadle a shot at him, and down he went.
When you get a team down just a little bit, you begin to substitute. The people who haven't had a chance to play are so fired up about the opportunity that they get, and also the hope that they can move up in the squad a little bit. Just adds to the pressure. We're going to get the big rush again, I believe, Keith. 9 men for Michigan on the line of scrimmage, as you can see.
Steve Tobin is standing back inside his 5-yard line. If I were you, Steve, I'd back up another couple of steps. Because you know they're coming. Now they drop off a little bit. Number 10 comes back out of there. And they peel back for the return as he hangs a very high punt. And Jim Smith calls fair catch, standing just inside midfield. 33-yard punt, but very good hang time. No return. And Michigan's got good field position again. Here's Jim.
Minnesota has made headlines in the past week for becoming one of a growing number of universities that have sued the NCAA. At issue is a very unusual penalty levied against Minnesota by the NCAA, an indefinite probation. It has to do with 3 basketball players who were involved in some violations reported to the NCAA by Minnesota and the Big Ten, who were not then ruled ineligible by Minnesota. It's uncertain at this time when a court ruling will be forthcoming on the Minnesota suit. Keith?
All right, Jim. Stacy Johnson is in at quarterback. Rob Lytle is in at fullback. He just carried the ball for short yardage. Harlan Huckleby is the tailback. And Steve Stewart, who's gone all the way at the left linebacking position, just made the stop. Gain on it, 2 yards, 2nd down, 8 at the Minnesota 47. Jim Smith is out of the lineup now for Michigan. Stevenson wide right. Double tight end alignment on 2nd down and 8. And Stacy Johnson is dropped right at midfield. Penetrating Keith Brown, number 34 for the Gophers, wearing the white shirts. Bill has more scores.
All right, Keith, as time allows here before the next play, let's quickly whip some in. Yale over Cornell in the 4th quarter. And Dartmouth well ahead of Columbia. That one now has gone to 9-3 from a 3-3 tie. Army still ahead of Air Force. And Penn State up on top of Temple in the game that was tied for quite a while. Rutgers going after number 16 in a row.
Stacy Johnson back to throw. Pass is in and out of the hands of number 84, Michael Hunt. He had it, just dropped it.
It was kind of a soft ball, too. Felt that Johnson sort of lofted it instead of drilling it. Hunt had a great opportunity, but just kept his eyes on it. Let's take a look at Hunt on the entire play. He's the linebacker. He reads pass. He drops back to his spot. The receiver curls. He slips just a little bit, and that little slip that he had probably accounted for his missing the ball, Keith. He didn't quite recover his equilibrium. Michigan's first Hunt.
John Anderson, been so long since he kicked one, didn't really know what to do with it. He sort of knuckleballed it down to about the 18-yard line. Not the best punt he's ever hit, but then he's probably got a full foot. Bill?
Okay, more scores. Colgate now still down and trying to preserve that unbeaten record. Virginia Tech still ahead of West Virginia. North Carolina still ahead of Wake Forest. And Duke leading Georgia Tech. There's a new one. Illinois over Wisconsin in the 2nd quarter. Northwestern still on top of Iowa. And Michigan State leading Purdue. And back to action.
As Minnesota comes up first down at the 18-yard line. Tony Dungy is still in there at quarterback for the Gophers. He's got 3 men wide to the open side of the field. Now brings Bro, the tailback, this way. Hands the ball off to Matthews, the fullback. And John Matthews jumps over one man, gets it out across the 25 to about the 26. This program is a special exclusive of ABC Sports. Let's pause 5 seconds to allow our local stations to identify themselves.
WDHO TV 24 Toledo.
And we have 50 seconds remaining to play 3rd quarter. Michigan leading 38-0. Minnesota with the ball. 2nd down, and they need 2 at the 26. Matthews. Well, I don't think John quite got his first down. He may have to run one more play. He took a lunge at it.
Vogel made a very good tackle. He was solid on his feet. Felt though he might slip it, but he hung on, and it did prevent the first down.
They'll measure. With 21 seconds to go in the 3rd quarter, and let's keep checking the scoreboard with Bill.
All right, Houston ahead of TCU in the 1st quarter. Texas A&M ahead of SMU. Wyoming now is down to Colorado State, 16-13. Say, that's quite a ball game for the WAC conference lead. There's Oklahoma ahead of Colorado. And Texas has now gone ahead of Texas Tech 14-7. Notre Dame ahead of Navy. And Ohio State having quite a struggle with the Hoosiers. And that five-way tie in the Big Eight looks like it'll be broken today in the logjam. Keith?
It's third down, need about 6 inches for Minnesota for the first down. Dungy gives it to Kitzman, the tailback. He goes over the top, and he's got his first down.
Dungy very fortunate that time, Keith. He didn't quite get the snap from center cleanly. He had to reach way out to make the handoff, but with his great balance and skill, he did get the ball in there, and the play was successful.
And we have finished 3/4 of play here at Michigan Stadium in Ann Arbor. And after 45 minutes of football, the score, Michigan 38, Minnesota nothing. We go to the final quarter of play in this 6-7 game between Minnesota and Michigan. And the Wolverines, leading 38-0, have a pretty good chance at winning their 8th straight, I would say.
Somewhat of an understatement.
Or would it be 9th straight, I guess. They've won 8 previously in a row over the Gophers. It is first down for Minnesota. Double wide to the right side. Ball is in the center of the field. Dungy back to throw. Unloads to the sidelines, and it is good. Pass is caught by Koulis, who has... No, it is not Koulis. It is Jones, Mike Jones. Saw the 40 going down, but it is Mike Jones. Koulis won't play, as Jimmy Lampley told us a little while ago.
And the statistics reflecting very clearly the superiority of this great Michigan team. 366 total yards at the end of the third quarter. It's the fastest offensive team, Keith, that I recall seeing. They haven't been tested yet, and maybe they're not going to be tested. Ohio State, of course, believes they can on November 20th.
Dungy 10 out of 15 for 70 yards in the ball game, averaging 7 yards per completion. Tony gives the ball inside. It goes to his fullback, John Matthews, and there isn't much there as he tries to split over the left side, and there's just no way to get a hold, apparently, on this day as the rain continues to fall here at Ann Arbor Stadium, and perfectly willing to admit it's a chilly day. As you can see, we're wrapped up in our top coats. Jimmy Ritz stand over here on the right. He's frolicsome in his yellow jacket, and so is Jerry Klein over to the left. But then they're younger. But
that is right. Their blood flows more freely and quickly.
Third down and about 2 yards to go. And Dungy almost stumbles and falls, gets the pass away. The pass is complete for the first down to Kitzman, the tailback. Then he gets really popped. He's up at the 44-yard line. Of course, Chris Carmody's standing over here. Chris hasn't got any warm clothes, I guess. I don't know.
When the rain first started falling, the field was very, very slick, but we've had enough moisture now for it to have penetrated into the artificial turf, and the footing is a whole lot better.
44-yard line, first down for Minnesota. Gophers again line up with double wide receivers. Send Bro in motion, pitch it back to Bro, and his feet slide out from under him, back around the 40-yard line.
I just got done saying the field was much, much easier to run on the water. Whoops and pop.
All right, Bill.
All right, the Georgia Bulldogs beat Cincinnati today, 31-17. So Cincinnati falls to the ranks of the undefeated. And Florida is leading Auburn now, 24-12. And so next week, it'll be for the SEC lead. National telecast, 2 o'clock Eastern time, Florida and Georgia from Jacksonville.
It could well be for the conference championship and the host spot in the Sugar Bowl game on January 1 as well, because the Southeastern Conference champion goes into the Sugar Bowl on second down. And 14 yards to go. Dungy's pass is in and out of the hands of number 86, Jeff Anhorn. He had Anhorn open, and he had a little mustard on it, and Jeff couldn't hang on. Have a look at Anhorn, number 86.
He's a very tall receiver, 6'3", weighs 182 pounds, but finds the open spot quite well. He takes a little bit of look to the inside, curls, sets up. Dungy found that lane to fire the ball, and Anhorn just couldn't quite get his hands in position to make the reception.
And so it is third down and about 13 yards to go. The yardage in the ball game, you can see Messrs. Lytle and Leach have rather roundly outdistanced the core of Minnesota running backs. Dungy straight back, goes deep, passes overthrown, intercepted by Hicks, number 17. All he had to do is stand and wait for it. And he's got one going. All he's got to beat is Dungy, and he can't get away from Tony as he brings the ball back to the Minnesota 17-yard line.
I don't know. How good are they, Keith? To me, they look to be an awfully good football team. They're not going to be tested, at least on comparative records, by Purdue or Illinois. Ohio State ranked in the top 10. Let's take a look at the play again.
I think the impressive thing here, Bud, is the way that Michigan, realizing their man had the ball, they quickly adjusted and did a fine job of blocking.
That's one of the things you always work with your defense to do, to shift from offense to defense when that interception comes. It appeared as though he might break it all the way, but Dungy did not want that interception to go for a touchdown. He made a fine tackle, took him on very squarely.
And so with 12 minutes and 50 seconds to play in the ball game, here are the Wolverines threatening again. Let's call it the 18-yard line. It's a 51-yard return by Dwight Hicks. And the handoff to the first man through. That is Rob Lytle, number 41. And he's inside the 10 to about the 8-yard line.
The takeoff of the offensive line is the thing, of course, that makes Michigan's offense go. The starting count execution is absolutely superb.
Smith out now, and you get the double tight end alignment into the ball game. It is Smirky, number 82, and Johnson, 88. With Stevenson to the left. Second down, a yard for the first down. And Stacy Johnson gives to his fullback, and Lytle plunges in, trying for the first down, and it would appear that he does have it. So it'll be first and goal to go for Michigan from the Minnesota 7. And more scores with Bill.
All right, Keith, you know the Crimson Tide are in quite a battle today. But now Alabama has forged ahead of the Bulldogs of Mississippi State. John Davis scored on a 3-yard run, and Jack O'Rear ran for the 2-point conversion.
And the Tide keeps hanging on. Struggling this season, but still winning. First down, goal to go. The ball goes to the tailback, Colin Huckabee. Huckabee with 11 touchdowns, and one in this game already is stopped at the 2-yard line.
A lot of people wonder, Keith, why you have your first team back still in there when you've got a 38-point lead. I really believe what Bo is thinking about is Leach might get hurt early on against Ohio State or one of these teams, and we need to give Johnson some actual game experience under fire with the backs that he would be playing with if Leach should happen to be injured.
On second down and goal to go. Lytle, touchdown.
The offensive line, we've been talking about it all afternoon. This is an end zone shot close to the goal line. Look at them come off the ball, and they simply wipe everybody out. Middle guard was not blocked. They went over to take the other people on. Wide open, Lytle hitting it very quickly for the score.
A kick by Wood in the middle. 11 minutes, 11 seconds to play in the ball game, and it's now Michigan 45, Minnesota nothing. And I don't know, Bill Fleming, the way things are going, as often as I've heard your alma mater's fight song, I almost know the words.
We're going to hear it some more the next couple of Saturdays, I believe, also, but then that big one against Ohio State. And before the season's over, we'll know how good this Michigan team is. They're going to be in a bowl game almost for sure. Rose Bowl if they go all the way in the Big Ten. If not, they'll be picked for one of the other major bowls, so they'll get a test somewhere down the line.
Wood hits it. Slipped a little knuckleball, and it's into the end zone. They better touch it down. I thought for a minute that ball might have caromed off the knee of one of the Minnesota players, but I guess not, as they call it touchback to the 20-yard line.
I think it did hit him, Keith, but the momentum still carried it into the end zone, so they could down it back there. Nobody had control of it.
They'll bring it back to the 20 where it's first down for Minnesota. And the rain is continuing to drizzle. It's not been a heavy rain, but it's been enough rain to get everything wet. And a lot of the more than 100,000 people, about 101,000, have gone home where it's warmer. Double wide to the right side as Dungy sets. And Tony hands it away to Bro. And Steve Bro fights his way for maybe 4 yards out near the 25-yard line. So it'll be second down and about 6 coming up
for Minnesota. And continuing to check scores with Bill.
All right, Keith, and this score just in the fourth quarter. Pittsburgh now leading Syracuse 20-13. Don't forget, Dave Dials and Warner Wolf will have all the scores on the Prudential College scoreboard following.
And let's call it second down at the long 5, just inside the 25-yard line. Pitch to Kitzman. Kitzman sweeping. Gets loose. Goes first down out to the 32-yard line. Well, if Pittsburgh holds on to that score and can win by 7 or more, then Pittsburgh probably will hold on to that number 2 national ranking. I don't think it's in the question, but what the Michigan Wolverines, after the showing they've given us here today, will remain the top-ranked team in the country. UCLA and Southern California were 3-4 going into the weekend. And the one team that appeared to be in trouble, Maryland 5, Maryland winning their ball game. But the team that appeared to be in trouble was number 6-ranked Texas Tech against the Texas Longhorns. And that's a very big ball game in the Southwest Conference. At the 32, it's first down Minnesota. Matthews, the fullback, to the 35 and across the 35.
Jerry Meter made the stop.
Colorado and Oklahoma. Oklahoma leading Colorado was ranked 13th in the country coming into the weekend. Notre Dame looks all right in their ball game. So does Nebraska, that held a number 9 ranking after their loss to Missouri last week. Georgia won their ball game, so the Bulldogs are sitting in there in the number 7 position. And Florida, going into the weekend 12th, were winning their ball game over the Auburn Tigers. They pitch that ball to Kitzman. He gets whacked from Steve Graves, a 217-pound sophomore from Cleveland, number 54. Anybody voted Michigan number 1 prior to this game, Keith, cannot change their vote. There aren't very many undecideds as there are in the presidential election coming up. Right.
Michigan had 38 first-place votes in the UPI coaches poll. Pittsburgh had 3, and UCLA won last week.
And that Big 8 race continues to be very tight. 5 teams today going into their games were 2 wins, 1 defeat. So that one's going to go down to the final game of the season.
3rd and 8. Throw the pass short. Pass is complete. Gain is to the 45 as Wipczynski, number 85, makes the catch. He's a freshman out of Green Bay, but that's going to leave him short of the first down. The Big Ten Conference enjoying the greatest year ever in football attendance, and college football attendance all over the country is up through 40 games this year. Over 2,430,000 people have watched the color and excitement here in the Big Ten. 60,000 plus average, making Big Ten football the most widely viewed spectator sport in the country today. Of course, the man whose pockets is doing the most jingling is right here, Don Kenham, the athletic director, who has proven himself to be a wizard at the way he has helped his coaching staff organize things.
And his coaching staff, of course, has delivered for him with continued victories.
Tobin's punt almost blocked, not a very good punt, and he won't even take a Minnesota bounce. So they'll mark it down at about the 35-yard line of Michigan. 25 yards on the kick, 8:05 to go in the game.
This is Rick Leach, who's led the offense to 45 points. That offensive line doesn't make it too tough for you.
Well, I've been saying all along that our offensive line is one of the tops in the country, if not the top one, and they just do so many things that goes unnoticed. They not only make their blocks at the line, but our linemen are quick enough that they get downfield and make the second block that springs Huckabee and Lido and Russell Davis, and they just do all the things necessary for us backs to get out of there.
You've come a long way, too.
Well, I'd like to think I have. I worked real hard this summer and tried to improve on all aspects of my game, and I just, I'm just glad to be here. And with guys that I got to surround me, it doesn't make it hard.
Rick, I wonder, as you get down to this point in the season, undefeated, ranked number 1, how hard is it for players on this team to keep Ohio State out of your mind?
Well, it's not hard at all. We know that we're in a stretch right now, and every game is going to be a tough game. And we came in here, and we know Minnesota was going to be a tough game, and we got a couple touchdowns early, and we just took it to them after that. But Minnesota's a fine team, and they got a great quarterback in Tony Dungy. I'm sure they'll do well the rest of the year.
Okay, thanks a lot, Rick Leach.
Thank you very much.
All right, Rick Leach with Jim Lemley. Second down and 8 yards to go. Stacy Johnson is the quarterback. At fullback, it is Kevin King, number 36, carrying the ball on the second successive play. And he's not that far from his first down as he gets it out to about the 44-yard line. Lawrence Reed was in for one play. I believe he's gone out. Now, Max Richardson has come in at a wingback position. Ralph Clayton, number 27, has come into the backfield. as well. And Dave Harding, number 83, is now in for Michigan. Steve Nauta is in. That's the entirety of the second and third units on the field right now.
And thinking back, Keith, to happier days for Minnesota, what team was it that Tom Harmon, Michigan's fabulous all-time All-American, never did defeat?
Your alma mater.
One of those things a lot of people have forgotten. It was a happier day for the Golden Gophers.
Stacey Johnson runs for the first down as he just pulled away from the snap, and it took off on a power sweep, running it just like a tailback. And 6:39 to go in the ball game. Time is taken here as we have a Michigan man shaken on the play. And it's Johnson, the quarterback. Coming out to replace him will be John Wengler, number 5. He is a freshman from Royal Oak. So Stacey Johnson will leave the game, his team leading 45-0. 5:20 to go in a ball game. Third down and a yard to go for the Michigan Wolverines. Wengler, the quarterback, gives the ball to Ralph Clayton, number 27, a freshman Croyd, who appears to be very quick. He hits it to the 30-yard line, and it's a first down for Michigan. So the Wolverines having it all their way right now as Clayton, number 27, comes out, and Lawrence Reed, a freshman from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, goes in at tailback. Kevin King is the fullback, and it's John Wengler, number 5, at quarterback. And right now there are 3 freshmen playing in that backfield.
Ooh. And all of them can fly, just like the people they replaced.
King, the fullback, on first down at the 30-yard line, fights to about the 27 for 3 yards. Let's run over some of the names now playing. Rick White had split in for Michigan. John Giesler's in the lineup. John Powers in the lineup. Dave Harding is in there. Steve Nato at center. Greg Bartnick at a guard. Mike Kinn, number 78, I believe, stays in there at the tackle position. Clayton goes back in at tailback. Max Richardson, number 43, is the wingback. Max is a junior. He must feel like old folks out there. Wengler turns, gives it to Richardson, the wingback coming on that counter. He's down to about the 24-yard line. And remember, immediately following our ball game, Prudential College scoreboard, except on the West Coast, you'll see ABC's Wide World of Sports with Evel Knievel doing his thing up in Seattle. World Weightlifting Championships out of Moscow. That's at 5 Eastern, 4 Central over most of these ABC stations. Viewers on the West Coast will see the entirety of Wide World of Sports at its normal time, which is 5 Pacific time.
Usually there's something to cheer about for a team that's being defeated. And Minnesota, however, this afternoon has been so dominated that they have never made a snap across the 50-yard line in Michigan territory all afternoon.
Michael Davis, another freshman from Woodbridge, Virginia, the brother of Russell Davis, is in at fullback, and he just carried the ball, number 35, and he's close to a first down. Not quite, about a half a yard short. And once more, here's the man who's got blue all over his house, Bill Fleming.
All right, in the Southwest Conference, you know, Arkansas, Texas, and Texas Tech were all tied 2-0 going into today's play. Well, Texas now still leading. Texas Tech 14-10, 2:21 to go in the first half, as Texas Tech has just gotten a field goal, a 34-yarder, by Brian Hall, who is quite a story, as you know, Keith.
Yeah, he's kicking with that artificial foot and leading field goal kicker in the country. And right. The Okies are moving, too, aren't they?
That was a Horace Ivory run, by the way, on that one.
Yeah, a lot of people thought that Colorado would upset Oklahoma today. Oklahoma coming off a defeat last week from Oklahoma State.
Fourth down at about a half yard to go. The ball is near the 21-yard line of Minnesota. And John Wengler coming back. Looked like he was going to throw himself a pass there. As he faked it off to Clayton. Looked like it had pass all over it. And John slipped and fell down. So on fourth down, they give up the ball to Minnesota with 2:52 to go in the game, and Michigan has it well in hand. The Golden Gophers at the 27-yard line have the football, first down. Michigan now, Bo Schembechler going all the way down the bench. Letting everybody have a chance to play in a ball game. It is Kitzman, the tailback, running from the 27 out across the 35, maybe the 36 for about 8, maybe 9 yards. Offensive and defensive players of the game will be named shortly, and each one of the players will receive a $1,000 scholarship in their name to the university's General Scholarship Fund, and there are the gentlemen awarded.
Lytle carried the ball 20 times, gained 129 yards.
Big John Hennessy played an outstanding ball game at defensive tackle. So, Mr. Bill Fleming, your Wolverines are amply rewarded today, not only by 45-0, but they take both ends of today's scholarship from Chevrolet.
Right, and I might add that there will be 2 plaques in the Michigan Trophy case on Monday morning, courtesy Chevrolet. John Hennessy, by the way, is senior this year at 235 pounds, one of those kind of guys that doesn't get a lot of headlines, and I think it was a good choice.
He played a heck of a ball game from that defensive tackle position today. First down for the Golden Gophers now. The ball is sitting out of the 37-yard line. And Tony Dungy, who's had a tough day, tucks it. And Tony gets out to the 42. Before number 24, Paddock. And Mackle make the tackle.
Trying to get a feel again, Keith, about how good is this Michigan team. Going into this game, the Minnesota tailback Kitzman was averaging 4.5 yards per try rushing the ball. Dungy was averaging 4.5 yards, and Matthews, the fullback, averaging 4.6. So this is not a totally inept team as we look at a very dispirited Cal Stoll, the Minnesota coach.
You see that gray hair extending beyond the cap. Days like this make it so as Steve Broe carries and gets loose. And for the first time today, I believe, Minnesota has moved into Michigan country. 14 yards on that carry. It is first down for Minnesota at the Michigan 44-yard line.
And Minnesota trying to put some points on the board, are going without the huddle as the clock is winding down.
Dungy to throw. Throws it short, batted up in the air. It's intercepted by Ron Simpkin, a 220-pound freshman linebacker from Detroit. Well, Cal, there'll be other days.
And it'll all begin next week. This team is not a bad football team. I think Minnesota's got an excellent chance to come back. They play Northwestern next week. Then they go against the Buckeyes of Ohio State and finish the season against the Badgers of Wisconsin. If they can get over their injuries, pick up the form that they had prior to the second half last week against Iowa, they could finish the season with an excellent record.
Turnovers, 3 for Minnesota, 1 for Michigan. Prudential College scoreboard right after the ball game, with all the scores and the highlights of games as Wengler is caught behind the line of scrimmage. Play starting from the 46-yard line. He's dropped at about the 45. And so we're running it down, the final moments of this 67th meeting between Michigan and Minnesota. Michigan will have won 9 straight. Bo Schembechler will have won 8 straight. And it's been a long day for the folks wearing the white shirts. Lawrence Reed, number 23, slipping at the line of scrimmage. And the clock continues to run with now 15 seconds remaining to play. And the tape is starting to be peeled off. And so the Michigan Wolverines continue undefeated and undoubtedly top-ranked in the country as they defeat the Minnesota Gophers 45-0. A cool, wet afternoon.